It's now time for The Sit Down with Don Tony.
The Sit Down, where Don Tony talks one-on-one with his followers.
What are you looking at?
About the world of pro wrestling, pop culture, and so much more.
The Sit Down with Don Tony.
And now, your host, Don Tony.
Fuck you, Fox. Fuck you, Biden. Fuck you, Trump. Fuck them all. How's it going, everyone? It is Friday night, June 28th, 2024. Why do I feel so low tonight? I know my chair is not sinking in, but I actually had some furniture issues earlier today, but for some reason, I feel like much shorter tonight. Yeah, I can't wait for WWE to get off of Fox and go to USA Network. Then again, wait a minute. Hold on. Doesn't USA Network also censor the expletive chants on Raw? I could swear that they do. That's still gonna suck. Netflix is gonna be the way to go. My prediction is 5 years from now, I think WWE is gonna be all streaming media. Kevin and I have had conversation on DTKC show. I've had a few here as well over the last 6 months. Hopefully you've checked them out. Netflix is a much different animal than USA Network, cable TV, mainstream networks. They are not bound to the guidelines by the FCC Commission and more. I mean, obviously there are standards and practices, but here is the difference, and I know people are convinced that the Attitude Era is coming back. Attitude Era is never going to come back. Attitude Era was a reflection in some ways of society at that time. Attitude Era does not fit with today's society. Being edgier, absolutely. Plus, WWE is a money-making machine. You are not going to screw with a lot of demographics, especially young fans out there. You hear a lot of places say that WWE's getting younger. That doesn't mean that they're getting younger in a sense that they're getting a big jolt of 19-year-olds tuning in. It's just that the average age is going below 50. It's still much different. So you're not going to screw with a lot of your money-making demos. Again, you and I should really not give a shit too much about the demos unless it's news. That's for the networks, the advertisers, the investors, and the companies involved. Those are the ones that should care about demos. People online are always obsessed with demos just for excuses, for inept, or insecurity. For me, I've been saying this since 97. I'll continue saying it to the day I stop talking. I absolutely would rather have 3 million people tuning into my show than boast that I had 400,000 in the 18 to 49 demographic. If advertisers want to focus on that, that's fine. You and I are not advertisers. And people online sometimes try to convince you that, they're number one for the night, like AEW's number one for the night, number 9 for the night. And it only did 600,000 viewers, and you look at everybody else around them, and it's like 2 million, 3 million, 2.2, 4.2. It's like, come on. I'll never forget that It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia rating. They had 200,000 viewers. But because their demo, the 18 to 49 demo, was so much of their audience, they were listed like in the top 5. I'll never, ever forget that. That's just baffling. But anyway, I want to welcome everyone to the Sit Down. I am somewhat tired, Don Tony, but I always try to get myself up for all the shows that we do. I want to thank you all for joining me live. Big shout out to everybody on the archive as well. We're going to get into your questions very, very early today. We're also going to talk a little bit of SmackDown. Paul Heyman, God, Roman Reigns. Remember what we said. Roman Reigns' return, the biggest pop of the year, is not going to be, well, it will be when Roman Reigns enters the curtain, but it's also going to be when Paul Heyman's cell phone goes off. And you see on the screen, Roman Reigns. And then when they show that camera flashed on that cell phone and it says Roman Reigns, remember, Paul's been trying to call Roman Reigns in storyline. Roman Reigns has not answered the phone. Roman Reigns has disappeared. So Roman Reigns is going to have to call Paul Heyman. When that happens, it's going to be really interesting. Look, I'm still, got some thoughts that Paul Heyman could ultimately stay with this rogue bloodline or reunite with them later on. Remember, Roman Reigns also beat up Paul Heyman. Not to this extent, obviously, but I tell you, perfect place to do it. Madison Square Garden. Perfect place to do it. Only problem is, the crowd was so into it tonight. And when you bring an Indiana Pacer player with Logan Paul, you should have known that you're going to get 17,000 fans chanting, "Fuck the Pacers, fuck the Pacers," and it got censored out. And all parts of SmackDown tonight, dead air, no audio, not just for like a little split second. It was almost like the censor people in Fox were just lazy. Instead of just pressing it quick for the word fuck, they just left their finger on the mute button for like extended periods of time. And man, it really just takes away that experience at home. But when you do deals with networks like this, you have to expect this to happen. It's not a WWE thing. Even AEW, if you remember, AEW started getting censored and people were saying that AEW was censoring themselves. No, it wasn't. It was the network that was pulling back a little bit and saying, you know what, it's a little bit too much. And speaking of AEW, I'm going to get into something tonight. And I'm going to open up I'll give you the AEW stuff right now. I'm going to open up with it by taking a quote from Roman Reigns about the upcoming YouTube special WWE WrestleMania 40 Behind the Curtain. This Wednesday, July 3rd, on YouTube, WWE will be airing that documentary. And that's obviously is going to be Judgment Day for yours truly and Kevin Castle. Because there's a lot of people out there that were convinced that WWE was seriously going to take Cody Rhodes' 2-year storyline, everything about Dusty, rehashing all this stuff and flush it down the toilet because The Rock became available and it was going to be Rock Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40. There are people that are convinced about it. And, Kevin and I had the conversation in the past. We don't need to rehash them. But one thing was for certain, Kevin and I said Cody was finishing his story all along. The "We Want Cody" chant was manufactured by WWE. And what's really upsetting, and, it's interesting, yesterday I was on Monty and the Pharaoh, which was an amazing show. I've gotten so much feedback already with DMs, emails, and some public posts being on that show yesterday. When I go like this on the archive, on the replay, click that link and check out my appearance yesterday. We went 90 minutes. They interviewed me, and I answered everything. I revealed things about me that you never heard before. I got very, very raw and blunt about Kev Castle, shared some old school stories, and just talked, about, just things in general. It was spectacular. I had such an amazing time doing it. And I know there's quite a few of you that are already bugging him to have them bring me back. There was a lot of things that we didn't even get into yesterday. But, if you want to know a little bit more about yours truly, and even how everything started in the 90s. I mean, I know I've told stories over the years, but there's other things that never really came up for various reasons. So check it out. It was really an awesome show. But, one thing that we talked about yesterday is that one thing that is really different about today's age is this culture that people cannot just accept that they were worked, if you want to use that term in the world of pro wrestling. People can't admit that they're wrong. When people are wrong, they get angry about it instead of just saying, hey, they fooled me. Hey, I guess I got. People are so insistent that they are right that even when they're told the truth, they don't believe it. One of the most infamous ones was AJ Styles. And I'm sorry for bringing it up again. I'll never forget it. AJ Styles, I forget what show it was, news reporters. And they said that AJ Styles signed a new deal with WWE. This was like 4 or 5 years ago. And it wasn't true. And AJ Styles contacted them privately and said, listen, guys, if you want the answer, just come to me. I'm telling you straight up, directly, that I have not signed any deal yet. It doesn't mean that I'm not staying, but I didn't sign any deal yet. You know what they said back to AJ Styles? We don't believe you. We stand by our sources. Obafangul. You look at Kayla Braxton. Today was Kayla Braxton's last show with the WWE. Thank you, Kayla. I have grown to become a fan of Kayla Braxton. But even when she announced that she was leaving, you had Meltzer post that AEW and Kayla Braxton had discussions. And Kayla Braxton went public a few days ago and said, listen, if I'm going to stay in wrestling, I'm going to stay with the biggest company in the world. I'm not going, to AEW. And I actually even showed it on the Discord Monday night, and I put it on the enhanced YouTube version for the channel members, where news sites were saying that she seemingly shot down. Do you understand what seemingly means? That means that you deny, but you may not be telling the truth. It's just people absolutely refuse to just accept being wrong sometimes. Look at me. I wrote on social media a couple of times a month ago, Paul Heyman is going to turn on Roman Reigns. That could still happen. But based on tonight, I don't see how that will happen anytime soon. And guess what? I'm happy that I'm wrong, because I'd rather see Paul Heyman with Roman Reigns, just like we used to rather see Paul Heyman with Brock Lesnar. I don't want to see Paul Heyman wasted on Solo Sikoa. Tonga Loa, WWE is not as high on as the other members there. Tama Tonga and Jacob Fatu are just fine. And, this storyline isn't going to last forever. Remember, it's going to culminate at Survivor Series, and then you got to start figuring out how do you get to Roman Reigns versus The Rock at WrestleMania 41. We had this discussion last week that The Rock could very well end up being a member on Roman Reigns' team for Survivor Series, and who knows, maybe he's the last person to come out, and he ends up turning on his own team. And who knows? We don't know. It's so early to tell. But the thing is, Roman Reigns said a quote on this WrestleMania special coming up, and he said, and this is exactly what he said, if you can continuously swerve them, then we've done our job. Let that sink in for a minute. If you can continuously swerve them, then we've done our job. For some reason, because Cody Rhodes wears a suit, that people think, he wouldn't dare swerve the fans. That maybe that reaction was it had to be genuine. Roman Reigns, The Rock, they're all performers, sports entertainers. You're not going to fuck up Cody's stock. You don't build it up. It's like you buy a piece of property, you gut it, You start from scratch and you spend 2 years building it, and you're about to finish the house. And then, oh, look, this material came out. Fuck it. Burn it back down. Let's put up this rush job, and then we'll figure it out going forward. You would have caused irreparable damage to Cody Rhodes. People would have looked back at it beyond the Lex. It would have been the Lex Express having sexual intercourse with the Drew McIntyre bus, the Drew crew, from Clash at the Castle 2 times now. You take those 3, roll it up and smoke it, and it still would have been less damage than Cody Rhodes. So Wednesday will say it, but I get to AEW now. For those that did not see it, all right, Tony Khan went on Fox Business. I don't know if I have the screenshot here. I might have the screenshot. Do I have the? Yes, I do have the screenshot. Okay. Tony Khan went on Fox Business to talk about AEW. Now, with all due respect to some people out there, I don't think you understand what is entailed when a billionaire CEO for not only just AEW, but multiple companies goes on one of the biggest financial networks in the world. They don't just go in there cold turkey. Like, hey, Tony, have a seat. What do you want to talk about? We'll just talk about AEW. Yeah, no problem. 3, 2, 1, let's talk. They go over fucking everything. They know exactly what Tony wants to talk about. Tony knows exactly what they want to talk about. If you notice, no softball, no hardball questions, no out of left field questions. Everything was very organized and very, very explicit. And for some people out there, they think that, things were put on the screen without Tony's knowledge. And this is one of the examples. Forget that AEW is available in 350 million households across the globe. I personally would not even tout that number, because if you're telling me that AEW is available in 350 million households and you can't even draw flies on shit, what does that say? If anything, you'd rather be like TNA and say, wow, we're not available in a lot of areas. But this is the one that got people talking. There was a graphic while Tony Khan was talking where it said 500 million people attended over 110 live AEW events in 2024. Okay. I will tell you right up front that the 500 million absolutely was supposed to be 500,000. It was supposed to be the letter K, not the letter M. And if you ever look at a keyboard and you look down, the letters K and M are literally next to each other. People do make that mistake. Any matarazzas out there that are saying, well, in some places, K actually, M actually stands for 1,000. Not in the fucking business world, you nitwits. If 5,000 people attend a baseball event, they put 5K. When 5,000 people are running in a marathon, they don't call it the 5M run. They call it the 5K run. That was a legit typographical error by Fox. But for everybody out there that wants to insist that Fox just came up with these numbers on their own, man, wipe Tony Khan's semen off of your mouths, with all due respect. I mean, this is your part of the reason why AEW is so fucked up as it is. Denial, 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 denial. Tony would never say that. You think a billionaire going on a business network is just going to do basic research? Hey, Amy, we're going to get Tony Khan on. Do a little research in AEW. Look at that. You don't think they're not going to ask the CEO of the company how many events you've done this year? What are some of the strengths about AEW? What are some of the positives? You don't think they got that from it? Oh, they absolutely got that 110 event number from Tony Khan and AEW. Would you like to know where Tony Khan got that number from? I did some research. And I will share it with you. I will show you. Kevin and I will talk about it in more detail on Monday. But I do want to say this. We're only in June. Divide 110 events by 6 months. And that's about, over 110 events. That's about 20 events a month. 20 events. You divide that into weeks, that's 5 events a week. Does AEW tour 5 times a week? No. You're going to say to me, DT, they were talking about 2023 until 2024. They were talking about the last 12 months. No, if you actually add up the last 12 months, it is much lower than 110. But I figured out where that 110 plus number came from. And I also figured out how they came up with 500,000 fans. Now, before I reveal it, that's not ticket sales. That's tickets distributed. That is the new magic number. That is the new thing. See, I've been doing this since 97. And when we used to cover ratings in the 90s and the early to mid 2000s, we would use decimal points. Raw got a 3.8, SmackDown did a 2.7, Nitro did 4.1, 1.6, Thunder did whatever. And then TNA came around. Oh, actually ECW, 2001, I'll never forget it. TNN, 1.2 rating debut, 1.0, 1.1, 1.0, did about 1 million viewers every week. And that's not bad if you think about it. But at that time, when you didn't have streaming platforms, that was a very disappointing number for TNN. TNN was promised a lot more than the viewership that ECW got. So ECW would be 1.0, 1.1. Then TNA came around in 2002. And TNA, they would do 1.6, 1.4, 1.1. And then it started to dwindle. And my infamous shirt, the Aces and 0.8s, because when Bully Ray and the Aces and 8s did that whole storyline, the ratings went down to 0.8. So they were no longer Aces and 8s. They were Aces and 0.8s. I got threatened to be sued. I got threatened to get my ass kicked over that. But their ratings were getting low. The ratings for TNA got so low that I don't remember who started it. I don't think it was Meltzer, to be fair to him. I don't remember who started it. But TNA's numbers were going so low, like 0.2, 0.4, that they no longer used decimal points. They started to use total viewership. TNA did 385,000 viewers. TNA did 440,000 viewers. And because they had to do that for TNA, they started doing it with WWE. And obviously, it's been adapted since then, and now everybody uses total viewers. They don't use decimal points anymore. So the total viewers for TNA was to cover up the number that looked even worse, which was a 0.3. If you notice, they still use decimal points for demos. How come you don't hear them say they did 380,000 in the demo? You hear them say, oh, no, the 18 to 49 for AEW was 0.19. Why do they still do that? Why don't they just tell? Why? Because the overall number sounds horrible when you look at it compared to 800,000 viewers or 700,000 viewers. If you say 230,000 in the 18 to 49, you're like, wow, that's a really low number, especially when you do have a shit night like Rampage or Collision. So that was always to cover it up. So now the latest is tickets distributed. You look at the history of wrestling up until 2022. It was always paid attendance. There would be disputes. 93,176. There'd be disputes, but it was always paid attendance. So now to cover up that a lot of tickets are comped, now it's tickets distributed. Because I may only have 2,000 paying fans, but I also give out 800 tickets and 600 people show up. Hey, I had 2,600 fans in attendance, but they don't tell you how many of them actually paid. So when you see this graphic of 500,000 people attended, it's not 500,000 ticket sales. That's tickets distributed. So before I show you the source, little history lesson with Tony Khan. By now, a lot of you know that Tony Khan grew up on the message boards, grew up on Cage Match, grew up on stats, grew up on ratings, Meltzer ratings, this, that. That's what Tony Khan is all about. If you ever pay attention to Tony Khan and even match ratings, he still references Cage Match. Cage Match is his fucking Bible. I don't think that's in dispute. I think you all agree. Cage Match is one of Tony Khan's biggest sources of information. WrestleTix. They're the ones with tickets distributed. They're the ones that also bounce off to WrestleNomics. So you have Cage Match, you have WrestleTix, you have WrestleNomics, and you have Meltzer. Those are the four sources of information that Tony Khan relies on. So now I would like all of you to, that's on video, to look at your TV screen, computer screen, whatever it is. Yeah, all right, whatever. You want to know where he got those 110 plus events from? He got it from Cage Match. And if you think that I am wrong, I'm going to show you. This is 2024. And if you look at your screen, you will see on the left a counter. The first event, you see the events. Okay, you see the events over here, collision, okay, whatever. You see where this is, all right? So now if we scroll down the events, okay, you see these events? You see these numbers? All right, we're looking at numbers now. You see the 2024? Okay, so now we go down here. Now, he made a mistake, obviously, but you see down here we're at 100? Okay, now we go to page 2. Let me show you page 2. Now we go to January 2024. And if you go to January 2024, which is right about there, 119 shows. 119 shows. So they estimate 119 shows up until 2024. If you look back at last year, all right, I'll scroll a little bit further. Okay, we look at last year. Now we go down to January. Actually, let's go to June 2023. Let's go to June 2023. All right, you see June 28, 2023, 212. All right. Based on those numbers, 119 events would take place in 2024. Between June of 2023 and June of 2024, there would have been approximately 106 shows. All right. So we average about 106 shows. Okay. So now we bring the good old calculator on the screen. Let me pull the calculator up. Now, this is where WrestleTix comes in. And unfortunately, I can't give you screenshots of WrestleTix numbers. But if you look at the screen for this, all right, we'll take 100 and, well, all right, let's use 103, 100. Oh, it's 113. Okay, 113 events. And the average attendance for the last 113 events is approximately 4,650. So we take 113 events and we multiply it by 4,650. And you get 525,450 tickets distributed. So again, I literally pulled this about 10 minutes before we went live. All right. So I will present it on Monday a little bit more formal. We will break down all of the events. But basically what Tony Khan did was Tony Khan went on Cage Match. All right. And if you look at the numbers again, he looked at January 1st, 2024, and saw 119 or 113. And he said, oh, we've had 110 plus events in 2024. Yes, he obviously made a mistake, but he always goes on Cage Match. Cage Match, if you go to January of 2024, you will see 113 or 119 shows. That's where he got the number from. You take that number and you multiply it by the average attendance that WrestleTix has put out there, you get 500,000 fans. That's it. Plain and simple. It's not rocket science for Tony Khan. It's Cage Match, it's WrestleTix, it's WrestleNomics, and it's Dave Meltzer. That's where he gets these numbers from. When he touts numbers, he doesn't look at his bookkeeping. If you ever pay close attention when Tony Khan talks about financials, even with the estimated revenue that AEW gets, you don't think he can't simply just call his accounting department and say, hey, Mike, how much money did we make last year? How much money did we pay out last year? He doesn't do that. Instead, WrestleNomics estimates based on the number of tickets and pay-per-view buys and average price for a ticket and average this, we estimate that he made $140 million. Dave Meltzer came out today that AEW pays out approximately $105 million to their talent every year. Do you know what Dave Meltzer got that $105 million on? I bet you all don't even know. I can't prove this, obviously, and this is not disrespect to Dave Meltzer. Would you like to know where he got that from? Wasn't it Las Vegas recently? Maybe somebody in the chat could correct me on this. Wasn't it Las Vegas recently that somebody got a Freedom of Information request and it showed how much, it was for Dynasty, I think, how much AEW paid for the 2 nights that they were there, and it showed how much they paid their talent, how much they paid the local talent. There's someone in the chat could verify that. I think it was Las Vegas. If you look at the number of the revenue that AEW paid for that event, I think it was like $1 million, and you multiply it by a year, you get pretty much 105 million. See, I can't do Steiner math. This is spur of the moment math. So look, for some people out there that think that Tony Khan based it on 2023 to 2024, AEW's having very similar number of events this year compared to last year. There's no question about it. They didn't add tons of events this year, so their numbers are going to be pretty close. There's no denying that. But because this guy always goes on Cage Match to pull numbers, if you go to Cage Match and you go to January 1st and you see the number of events there and you multiply it by the average attendance, you get 500,000. Fox did not just shit out that number. They did not guesstimate it. They did not. You think they went on Cage Match? Where do you think Fox got that number from? You think they just read a crystal ball, they assumed? No, they got it from AEW. And they got it from Cage Match. OTS Tribal Green says, proves that money doesn't make you any smarter. Yeah, it's true. It's true. But that's where he got it from. All right. Before we talk a little SmackDown, which, in a lot of ways was a very predictable show outside of the Bloodline stuff. The build for Kevin Owens, Randy Orton, and Cody Rhodes versus the Bloodline at Money in the Bank is tremendous. And I don't know if you all saw this earlier, but did you catch Randy Orton's look at Cody? Where Cody said that I should be defending the undisputed WWE Championship tonight in Madison Square Garden, and Randy gave him a look like, yeah, motherfucker, against me. Yeah, that match is coming, guys. That match is coming, likely at SummerSlam. I know a lot of people still think that it's Solo Sikoa versus Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam. Now, that was a misfire on a lot of people. They were trying to guess where this storyline was going from here. Do I think Cody versus Solo Sikoa should happen? Yeah. Solo Sikoa should try to do everything that Roman Reigns did, which he actually has, if you think about it. And Solo Sikoa should also say, I'm going to do what Roman Reigns couldn't. I'm going to take that undisputed WWE Championship I'm going to win that match. And I'm going to take that belt back to the Bloodline. And then he fails, obviously. And he's kind of indirectly said that already if you pay close attention. I do want to share something that I think is interesting enough that we should definitely mention it. On Monday, when Kevin and I were talking about ratings a little bit, we talked about NXT. And NXT's been doing, sevens, low to high sevens for quite some time. And it just felt like, that momentum is about to start calming down a little bit. We even said Monday, don't be surprised if NXT's numbers start to significantly go down. They did not face any playoffs as far as I could remember. I always wanted to be a gangster. As far as I can remember on Tuesday, I don't think there was any. They only did 6-11 this past week. So that is a pretty disappointing number based on recent trends. But it's just 1 week, so, let's see if that trend continues. But something that caught my eye that I'm pretty confident that none of you have heard anybody talk about, Bo Dallas. Bo Dallas, that video package from Monday, the tape, the VCR, Bo Dallas talking to Uncle Howdy. That was a kind of a ratings, I don't want to say bomb, but have you noticed anybody, and I know why people aren't talking about it, because they love Bray Wyatt just like I did. They want this storyline to be epic, amazing, unbelievable. I have chills, cinema, so anything that's negative, they're going to just ignore, avoid, do everything they can. I personally will stick with what I said on Monday. I think Monday's Raw, they took a couple of steps back with this group. Without getting into a whole thing here, you realize that after a couple of months, they did no character development for Dexter Lumis. They did no character development for Nikki Cross. They did no character development for Joe Gacy. They did no character development for any of the guys or girls on that team. Even Eric Rowan. They just did teasers, and then they showed up. Bo Dallas talking to Uncle Howdy should have been a vignette that aired two months ago to explain why Bo Dallas is now a monster. And then you start showing why Nikki Cross is in this group. Not just a QR code that says you have been mistreated, you have been promised, you have been lied to, you're cave birds, you're set free. You have Michael Cole still saying, oh, this Carrie-like woman walking down. I mean, we were supposed, think of the storyline. These are people lied to by the WWE, lied to by Triple H, misled, misused. So far, we are in storyline, don't know anybody under the outfits. So a guy wearing a pig mask was misused. That could be fucking anybody under that mask. Yes, we know who's under the mask, obviously, but think of this storyline. Take a step back and think about it for a minute. You were lied to. You were promised. You were manipulated by WWE, this and that. Shouldn't WWE in storyline tell us who was lied to? Who was misused? Why those people are now turning into animals, disruptors, monsters? He did none of that. The Bo Dallas Uncle Howdy was the first time since these teasers began that we finally had explanation as to why Bo Dallas is what he is now. That should have aired before they did what they did. They never explained attempted murder or whatever they did behind the scenes last Monday. You have, everybody and their mother. Look, when you're doing that kind of makeup work on Chad Gable, you don't think people back there were like, wow, it looks like he got shot in the head. You think people like, no, that just looks like paint. It just looks like, blood dripping down. It could have just bumped into the wall and that happened. No, it looked like a gunshot wound. The guy that was sitting against the wall that I thought was carrying cross, and I got it wrong. I don't mind admitting that. It looks like his brains were splattered. You think somebody back there was like, that looks like somebody's brains were splattered. They could have just threw a cherry pie against the wall. They were very explicit in what they did, and there was no explanation for any of it. None whatsoever. I definitely recommend you all go check out Dijak's interview with Sean Ross Sapp with Fightful. Dijak just got released. If you followed Kevin I's show, we've talked for the last few weeks that, we heard bad things about Dijak. Not about him, but we were fearing that he was going to be let go. Remember what we said this past Monday and last Monday with TKO Group Holdings, with Endeavor. This is not a wrestling mindset like Vince McMahon, where he's like, I see money 3 years from now. Let's take it slow. No, it's kind of more like the Janet Jackson, what have you done for me lately? Ooh, yeah. That's what it is. No one is sitting and catering for extended periods of time anymore. If they can't figure out how you could do something, whether it's NXT, maybe do something in Japan to represent WWE, maybe end up a little TNA stuff. If you can't work, in some capacity, if they can't find any use for you, or if you are expendable, you will be let go. And that's what happened to Dijak. But Dijak, talk about a guy that proved in NXT. This is debatable. I'd rather have Dijak on the main roster than Baron Corbin. What the fuck has Baron Corbin done since he's been on the main roster? He sits in the back, thank you, Nick, for an opportunity. Thank you for that. What happened to, not Cedric Alexander. Who's Cedric Alexander's partner? Not Shelton Benjamin. Who's his partner? Isaiah Swerve Scott. Remember that? Do you remember that? We called that out. He's in the office with Nick Aldis. All I really want is an opportunity. I think we got something for you. What the fuck has happened since then? Seriously. You look at even Michin. See, Michin is an example of someone who WWE has figured out can be used in a very beneficial way. She's lost. As far as singles matches go, I think she's lost almost every match but one or two over the last year. She's put in tag team matches on house shows to boost up some stats, but singles competition, I think she beat Tatum Paxley and maybe someone else in a year. But she's working, and she's putting on good matches, and the fans are into it. They are buying it. The problem with Dijak in NXT is this is a big motherfucker. And he had a tremendous match with Ilya. He had decent matches with others. But Dijak, unfortunately, he's a big man that they really could not figure out how they could. I'm not justifying WWE. I'm really annoyed that WWE let him go. And, there's a few other people that we are obviously concerned about as well. But, this idea that because the bloodline is so good and because we've been teased with these QR codes and we love Bray Wyatt and we love this and the Dominic Liv Morgan stuff has been pretty damn fun, we don't realize that there's a lot of other stuff that is pretty fucking mediocre, to say the least. And honestly, as much as I love Bray Wyatt, as much as I want this Wyatt 6 to work, to see that creativity keep going, let's call it out like we see it. It's okay. Bray Wyatt fans are not going to curse you. Well, logical Bray Wyatt fans are not going to curse you out. They're not going to disown you. They're not going to say, what are you, fucking stupid? What are you fucking, what are you, dumb? No. If you really examine the first 2 weeks on the main roster, it has been a hot mess. A hot mess. Now, Pat McAfee, condolences go out to him. His dad passed away this week, so that's why he was not on Raw. It was not storyline with the Wyatts. Personally, if I'm WWE, I would keep Pat McAfee off for a second week in a row and record something this week and make it seem like it happened last week, which is also kind of difficult because Pat McAfee's on ESPN every single day. So you could kind of explain that, or you spook the shit out of him, record something. But Bo Dallas on Raw this past Monday, the rating went down 420,000 viewers during his segment. The very beginning of Karrion Kross versus Kofi Kingston finished up quarter 9, because 3-hour show, obviously. Quarter 9 was that match. It was only 2 minutes before it went to commercial break. Bo Dallas, when that quarter started, it was 2,070,000 viewers. And that quarter with Bo Dallas and Uncle Howdy dropped all the way down to 1,637,000 viewers. That is over 420,000 fans. The VCR tape went in, and they're like, no, thank you. It wasn't, because some people were like, well, maybe they did tune in and Karrion Kross and Kofi Kingston, really tanked it. In 2 minutes' time in a 15-minute quarter, you would have to drop your numbers down to about 600,000 viewers to cause an overall average. That's only 1/7 of a quarter. So you take a step back and do a little math and you understand. That's why even with the Big Bang Theory, and this is to defend AEW, did you see this week? AEW this week did 680,000 viewers. The week before, they only did 502. They did 681. So they did 681, then 502, and then 680. So they went right back to where they were the week before. But people are like, well, the Big Bang Theory was back. And if you take away the Big Bang lead-in from this past Wednesday, they did 655,000 viewers. It is only a 25,000 viewership change on average because it's a 2-hour show. So when people are like, oh, the Big Bang is amazing. Yeah, look, I think people leave their TV on. Maybe some will stick around and want to watch a little bit of wrestling with it. We don't have tons of people that just fucking fall asleep while Big Bang is on and then they wake up at like 10:15 at night. Because if you look at the ratings after Dynamite goes off the air, the ratings are not very good. So it's only a 25,000 viewership change. And compare 25,000 viewership change to Bo Dallas losing 425,000 viewers. That's crazy. That's crazy. I wanted to share that number because I did not see anybody bring it up. And I'm like, that's a little bit concerning. I fucking love this segment. I just wish it aired a month or two ago. So, and by the way, would you like to know the highest rated segment on Raw this past Monday? Yeah, Liv Morgan, Dominic Mysterio, all that craziness. And the Seth Rollins video package also aired during that quarter. That did 2,077,000 viewers. And they actually gained about 300,000 viewers for Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio. That's been a ratings draw. Otis and Chad Gable has been a ratings draw. A lot of these storylines have been a draw. But I was pretty surprised. And for people that are going to say to me, what about the segment with Nikki Cross and Chad Gable? That did 1,916,000 viewers. Not a bad number. Not a bad number. Once that segment was over, they dropped about 200,000 viewers because that was Katana Chance and Kaden Carter taking on the Unholy Union. And that's what led to Damage Control coming out and laying out the Unholy Union. They dropped about 200,000 viewers there. So I just wanted to share those ratings a little bit because I found that pretty, startling to see that kind of a drop. And especially when you're in the third hour. And it was the early part of the third hour. You would think that, remember, Nikki Cross gave Michael Cole that tape at the beginning of hour 2. So we knew that tape was going to be played later on. And most of us thought the tape was going to reveal what happened backstage or if something happened to Pat McAfee. And as soon as the tape started playing and it was Bo Dallas talking to Uncle Howdy, 400,000 people said, I'm not interested. It's pretty fucking interesting, if I say so. And don't blame it on sports. All right, before we talk a little bit about SmackDown, I want to give a couple of super shout-outs for some of those. And yes, we'll definitely mention the passing of Sika, which really threw me for a curveball because I did not think he was going to be the first member of the Wild Samoans to pass. And that's not being morbid. In fact, let me mention this now. Sika, the father of Roman Reigns, passed away 2 days ago at the age of 77. Growing up as a wrestling fan in the early 80s, especially 82, 83, the Wild Samoans were scary. I got to see them up close and personal a little bit. In fact, yesterday on Monty and the Pharaoh, we were talking about Sika, and some of you know this story already. I've told this story before. In May of 1983, I broke my arm. I was riding a bike, and I was where I used to live on 74th Street in Middle Village. There was a block that had a really big dip. And when you rode bikes, it was a pain in the ass to ride up the hill on this block. But when it was time to go home and you go down that block and it's straight sailing, straight to my house, it was so much fucking fun, especially when you took baseball cards and you put the baseball cards in the spokes and it made it sound like that your bicycle sounded like a car engine. I don't know if anybody did that when they were young. I can only imagine how much money I fucked myself on baseball cards by putting them in spokes back in the day. But in May of 1983, I was going down this hill and I hit something and I went flying and my arm got tangled up on my bike and I broke my arm. Believe it or not, I don't know if you could all see this. I still have a scar right here. This is from when I fell off my bicycle. I cut my arm pretty bad and I broke it. And I had a cast for however long, I don't remember how long, couple of months. And my grandmother surprised me with tickets to the Ridgewood Grove Arena, which was a place that we would go see wrestling back in the 80s. And I'll never forget it. The main event was Bob Backlund against Ivan Koloff. And it was very rare to see Bob Backlund as the World Wrestling Federation champion in a small place like the Ridgewood Grove Arena, which didn't seat that many people. But we went, I think it was a Friday night. And I've told this story before that, my Uncle Mikey, who worked for the Ridgewood Grove Arena and did work for the WWF behind the scenes, after the event was over, Bob Backlund came over, he autographed my cast. I took pictures with my grandmother, my uncle, and a few people. And then I don't remember who's the person that brought it up. It might have been one of the people in the office, but Sal Balomo was there, and Backlund, and Sika, and a few others. And somebody said, we're going to all get something to eat. We're going to go get a bite to eat. And they invited everybody that was in the back. And I went, my grandmother, my Uncle Mikey. There was probably about 12 people, and Sika was there as well. And for me, being, 13 years old, it was surreal to see evil Sika, hanging out with, babyface Backlund, babyface Salvatore Balomo. And I don't think Ivan Koloff stood around, but there was heels and baby faces together. And me being 13 years old and still not understanding what wrestling truly was, this was before John Stossel got hit and all those TV shows telling us that wrestling is fake. That was before my Uncle Joe that, Fina, give me the tape. And he exposed to me that wrestling was fake at the time. So I believed what I was seeing was real. But that's my personal memory of seeing Sika live and in person. I didn't get to go to Madison Square Garden until late 83. And obviously, a lot of you saw the footage of me there with a couple of my friends, one of them on my shoulder when Hogan won the championship. But growing up as a kid with the Wild Samoans, it was bizarre because they never talked. This is not, you saw the clip tonight on SmackDown. They showed them with Sir Oliver Humperdinck and Sika's talking. They did not talk in the WWF. They would just stand there, and Alpha was the one that always scared me because Alpha would be like this. He would just always have his head tilted. But obviously the match that we all remember vividly the most was when Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas won the tag team titles. I think Alpha's the one that got the wooden chair cracked over his head. It's something that just sticks with us to this day. But they were scary motherfuckers. And the worst thing you could do when you had a match with them is throw their head in the turnbuckle. You throw their head in the turnbuckle and they just look at it like, what the fuck did you just do? It's weird. If you go on Twitter, I remember about 6 months ago, you had these whack jobs almost calling it racist, calling it bizarre, calling it stupid, that Samoans, had, thick heads. You put them in and smash them against the turnbuckle and it didn't hurt. I'm like, have a Snickers bar already. But, 77 years old, Alpha's in poor health. We talked about it maybe a month and a half ago that his school closed down. It used to be in the Northeast, moved to Florida. Alpha hospitalized. And out of the two, I honestly thought if any of the two were going to go this year, it was Alpha. I don't want to see Alpha pass. That guy is a beautiful man. I mean, when we did the drive, I have to call it like that because some people think I bring it up just for brownie points. But, Alpha gave us autographed photos. Georgianne Macropolis was very, very close. They called them Pops. And he gave me a whole bunch of autographed photos to give away, in return for, people donating money for that drive. But Alpha's in really poor health. And I'm worried that we're going to lose both members of the Wild Samoans this year. It hits home for me because he was 77. My dad was born in 49. So my dad is 75. My dad has had a triple bypass a couple of years ago. So his age, Sika, my dad are very, very similar to each other. Of course, my dad is not Samoan. My dad, you've seen pictures of him. But still, when you hear about people passing in their 70s and how wonderful of a dad Sika was and how well liked he was, it kind of hits home a little bit. I never interacted with him. I don't want anybody, I'm not going to sit here and make claims like that, now since he's passed on. But growing up as a kid, the Wild Samoans, did they scare me? They spooked me. They were like savages. It was like, you don't want to mess with those motherfuckers. Killer Khan used to give me nightmares. Like people like that. The Wild Samoans, I don't think gave me nightmares, but they were badass, man. They were badass. So Roman Reigns paying a nice tribute on social media a couple of days ago. And, rest in peace to Sika. Anoa'i. I've always said Anoa'i, and I know it sounds like A-N-N-O-Y. For decades, we would always say Anoa'i. So now I'm used to it. I could say Anoa'i. Just like Dijak. Do you remember when Dijak first came to NXT? Does anybody remember how I used to pronounce his name? I used to say, Dominic Dijakovic is in action. And I wasn't, listen, I obviously back in the day, Kevin and I used to play on names. I know Cornette does it now a lot with Brian Last, which is, they're not copying, but, we always used to joke with names, but that was not intentionally joking about Dijak. I honestly thought his name was Dijakovic. And I remember somebody saying to me, that sounds very Polish. I'm like, nah, Dijakovic. And then they're like, no, it's Dijakovic. So, all right. So rest in peace to Sika. You know, you look at that family tree, and I know Kevin and I were joking about it Monday because of how many children the members of the Anoa'i family have had. I think Jacob Fatu's had like 5 or 7. You know, every time you hear Cody Rhodes's intro, wrestling has more than one royal family. You know, I think originally it was about the McMahons and about the Rhodes. You know, I don't think he was referencing the Harts, so to speak, but all legendary families, obviously. But, you know, when everything is said and done, I think it might be argued. I think we can make this argument that the Anoa'i family might end up being the greatest wrestling family that ever existed as far as putting out stars. I mean, yes, not taking anything away from Stu and Owen and Brett and, you know, that family. Even the Von Erichs, you think about them. I mean, there's so many families. You know, the Funks was really just 3. But, I mean, you think of this, the next generation, even like 15 years from now. Listen, I know 15 years sounds like a long ways away. It comes like this. It's fucking wild sometimes how shit comes quick. Look at this. I mean, I know it's not recent of what Benoit did, but I just re-uploaded, if anybody that's interested. I boosted up the audio as best as I could. This past week is the 17-year anniversary of the Benoit tragedy. And it's the 17-year anniversary of that infamous podcast that we did the night of the Raw tribute show. You know, and it's kind of mind-boggling when it was like, holy shit, 17 years have gone by. And it's bizarre because I was listening back to a little bit of our podcast from that night because I was trying to improve the audio. And I'm listening to myself, and I wish to think that I've kind of gotten a little bit better in my cadence and the way I talk. But there was some things I'm like, wow, I'm still saying that same shit today, and it's 17 years later. Can you imagine 17 years from now, the next generation of the Anoa'i family that ends up doing what they're doing? You think Ava Raine will become the WWE Women's Champion? Yeah, I don't know about that, but pretty crazy, man. Pretty crazy. Years freaking fly by. You know, I was even thinking about it the other day with Obama. Not negative, but look how many years it's been since he became president. Just let that sink in for a minute. And you're like, holy shit. It's been a pretty fucking long time. And by the way, I saw this come in earlier. Listen, I always answer everything, which obviously I think last night was a great example of that. Ronnie C sent in a 10 spot earlier. He said, I enjoyed your appearance on Monty and the Pharaoh show. I hope you go on there again. DT, I know you're not into politics anymore, but please comment on the Biden versus Trump debate. I thought both sucked. You know, yesterday we were obviously up against the live debate. I did not watch it yesterday. When we finished Monty and the Pharaoh, at the very end, Pharaoh said that Biden fell asleep. And I thought he was joking because of the sleepy Joe Biden stuff. And I said, all right, after the show, let me go on Twitter and let me watch clips. And the first clip that comes up is people enhancing the audio, and it sounds like Joe Biden took a shit in his pants while Trump was speaking. Did you hear that video? Trump is talking, you look at Joe Biden, and you actually see his face have this little reaction at the very moment. And I thought somebody just added special effects. I went back and I found the timestamp of the debate, and he's sitting there, and all of a sudden you hear that. And as you hear, like, but it sounds like wet, like shit came out. And you see him flinch, go like, you know, and you react like, and then I'm watching both of them. And it's just, this is the best that our country could do. 2 80-year-olds. You know, last night is the reason why I don't follow politics anymore. I used to be a big Trump supporter, and I feel that we were manipulated a lot. You know, one thing about Trump, I'm not going to get into this whole politics, but I'll say this. One of the reasons why I used to support Trump, there's obviously some personal stuff, which many of you know already. But one of the reasons is I always had this mindset that, you know what, I'd rather work for an asshole and get a good paycheck. Not a criminal, an asshole. I'd rather work for an asshole and make some good money than work for a cupcake and be in crazy debt. And, you know, when even though he failed in a lot of business ventures, he succeeded in a lot as well. I don't give a shit if his dad gave him money or this and that. The guy ended up making a lot of money. So I was like, okay, you know, he's a successful business tycoon. You know, obviously you take 2 steps down, you hopefully get 3 steps up. And I thought financially things would be better. You know, going up against terrorism, you know, sometimes I had the mindset like, how do you scare a psycho? You got to come off as an even bigger psycho. I honestly thought like Russia and Iraq and other places, I think they were like, this guy's a fucking loose cannon. We ain't fucking with this guy. This guy legitimately, he ain't PC. That motherfucker will blow us to smithereens. That's how I always felt. But I now realize that, you know, sometimes you got to show compassion, even if you don't care, if that makes sense. Sometimes you got to bite the bullet. Sometimes you got to admit you're wrong. Sometimes you have to, you know, listen to people that you may not even agree with or even like, but it just felt like it was either this way or no way. And then you realize how much we were lied to on both sides. And the stuff with Biden, the guy has been a walking Xanax test dummy. If you've ever been on Xanax, or better yet, you ever see Kensington in Pennsylvania? I honestly think if he showed up on Kensington, Pennsylvania and was standing there like this, how long could I do it? I feel like Tony Khan. That motherfucker never blinks. People be like, he's fine. He's fine. But people were lying all this time, propping him up. It's like Weekend at Bernie's. I felt like I was watching Weekend at Biden's yesterday. This is what we got. I hope, I'm not voting this year, but I hope whoever Trump's running mate is fucking under 50 years old, that actually is like someone who is well liked on both sides, because we got problems, man. We got problems. That debate that's the worst fucking debate that I've ever seen. And if you remember, Mish and I live streamed their first debate 4 years ago. And I remember after the debate was over, we were like, wow, that was a fucking train wreck. Yesterday was that on steroids. So Jimmy James, I almost said Jimmy Jones. Jimmy James with the 5 spot. Mercedes is teasing a women's free agent signing with AEW. Is there any chance it's Becky? If not, who do I think it is? As far as I know, it's Becky Lynch is not going to AEW. Becky Lynch is a WWE lifer as of right now. I think it's either one of 2 people. It's either Megan Bain, which I know still a lot of you don't know who she is. I've seen some of her work. Interesting. Or it's Camille. I think it's one or the other. Listen, I know all of a sudden a lot of people that work for AEW are giving all these praises for these Japanese talents. You've had all of a sudden these Japanese names that never ever get mentioned unless you see them on Twitter and they're kind of wearing some revealing stuff, let's be honest. Honestly, for most of the Japanese women that always popped up on my feed that were in wrestling, for some reason, remember that guy that was going to work with WWE? Do you remember the promoter was sitting in a chair and the Japanese women had the pots and they were going like this. They were going, da, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. And that's when William Regal's son was going to go there for the tournament. Remember that video we played? He was sitting on the chair and he had a pot on his head and all the girls were wearing like these really like sexy outfits and he's standing there looking like a goof and they're like, da. I mean, that's all I see on my feed. Now all of a sudden, Mina Shikakawa, and this is Sobakawa, and this is Sokotoa, and Yakatoa. Like, oh, this person is awesome. This person's epic, amazing, unbelievable. This is a future champion. I'm like, yeah, when Forbidden Door is done a month from now, 90% of them are not going to be heard again. I watched a video the other day of Orange Cassidy, and he's getting confronted. I think, was it Kyle Fletcher and a few others? Here comes the Weeble Wobble, Tomohiro Ishii. He's walking down the rampway, and I'm looking at the crowd, and the crowd is, nobody's fucking reacting. And then he stands alongside with Orange Cassidy, and some of the people like, oh, he's aligning with it. And I'm like, this is why I have lost interest in AEW. You know, because 90% of the people that they're propping up right now from Japan are not going to be there for the most part after. They're not booking for the everyday. They're not even booking for the sickos. They're pleasing themselves. They're pleasing their, you know what it's like? This is the best way I could compare it. And by the way, big props to Monty and the Pharaoh. Holy shit. Did you guys see yesterday what they exposed? People started sending me clips. I had no idea that Dave LaGreca and a few others out there have been word for word, like copying like shit that Kevin I say, and then an hour later says it word. Remember about 15 years ago, we had that guy that did a podcast also, and we were talking about something with Monty Brown and Kurt Angle stuff, and we would say like certain words and even emphasize it. He did it. I still have that audio somewhere, but they were telling me about shit yesterday. I was like, I did not know. But now my comparison of Tony Khan with the exotic cars in the driveway and he can't drive stick and all. Did you hear how many shows are doing that now? I'm going to throw another one out of there right now. The problem with AEW's booking is this. Choose any nationality you want. Choose Irish, choose Spanish, choose Indian, choose any Chinese, choose whatever you want. I'm going to use Indian. I'm Italian. Outside of McDonald's and hot dogs and American food, I like Italian food. Eggplant parmesan, lasagna, pasta goulagia, you know, stuff like that. I'll even have stuffed clams. I like Italian food. Now, if I dated an Indian woman right now, and she says, come over to my parents' house for dinner, and I go over the house, and everything is like dead fish and curry and this and that, and spicy food, this and that, I don't eat that. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't eat that. Like, if you walk in, I've told this story. I dated a Jewish woman in the early 90s, a Jewish chick. And a lot of you know this story already. It was the infamous Thanksgiving where some fat dude from the Dallas Cowboys, I think he accidentally like kicked the ball into the end zone or something. Remember this really heavyset guy, the Dallas Cowboys? I think it was Thanksgiving. It was something like that. I went over her family's house for dinner, and they're Jewish and very, very they're hardcore. And I walk in, everything is this really deep Jewish food. And they were joking with me like, sorry, we don't have any of that lasagna. You know, we don't cook that stuff over here. But they blessed the food and this and that. And I was impressed. But I was like, you dick. You know, because they were making fun of me because hey, Anthony, Prince Spaghetti Day. You know, I'm sure they weren't thrilled about an Italian dating a Jewish person. But the point is that if I go to a dinner and it's a culture and a food, like you go to Scandinavia, you go to Pakistan, you go to Taiwan, and they have, eagle eggs, like raw fish eggs or this and that. Oh, that's a delicacy. No, that's not give me fish sticks. I don't eat that. So the problem is like you're going over Tony Khan's house for dinner, and everything that they make, you pretty much don't like. Like, oh, bread. Oh, I'll have some bread. You know what I mean? I'll load myself on bread, but most of the food, they're preparing it for themselves because this is what they like. This is what they think is what everybody likes, and this is what they prepare, and you sit there and you enjoy it. You know, that's kind of how I feel about it. So I can't wait for Forbidden Door to be over with. And by the way, here's another little ratings tidbit that I did a little research on. I was just curious. Since MJF has been back with AEW, the only quarter hour he's been on is first one. There was 2 Dynamites that he wasn't on. Every Dynamite MJF has been on, he's the first quarter hour. Kid you not. He's the first quarter hour. Because they want him to give this appearance that he is the biggest draw in that company. So we throw him in quarter one because of the Big Bang lead-in. It's usually the highest quarter of the night to make it seem like MJF is this big ratings draw. The problem is that when MJF bleeds into quarter two, it kind of looks bad because him versus Roosh lost 70,000 viewers as the match went on. Did they really lose 70,000 or did 70,000 big bangers like, I ain't watching this fucking shit. I'm not watching wrestling. So another reason why I don't like AEW. I'd rather see Paul Heyman get his ass kicked at 9:55 p.m., not at 8:05 p.m. You know, when you go out to a nice restaurant, I don't want the dessert as the first course and then have a salad at the end of the night. You want to build to the main course. I mean, that's just common sense. You watch a movie. Do you want to see the main part at the beginning of the show? And then everything else is flashbacks that lead up to it 3 hours earlier, 6 hours earlier. What is that? It's like that show 24 hours or whatever it is? Like we're going to see the person, you know, it's like watching Rocky. And Rocky wins the fight at 5 minutes in. And then for the rest of the show, oh, yesterday, 3 weeks ago. And then at the end of the show, it's like, that's what AEW does. The best parts that we want to see build and get anticipated and see towards the main event, they throw in the first quarter because that's going to be the biggest rating. That's why you get Claudio Castagnoli versus Pac to close out a Dynamite. Are you fucking kidding me? You do that when it's COVID and 3/4 of your roster are home in bed sick, or you do it because your planes got stranded in Saudi Arabia and you're on a very fucking loose roster. That's when you do that. You know, I'm going to stay around for 2 hours to see Pac versus Claudio Castagnoli. So, you know, let's be a little bit real here. I mean, it's not that hard to figure out why their numbers are awful. For everybody out there that complains about AEW's numbers being bad, you do little fixes like that, you definitely get a little boost. You tease MJF throughout the whole night and he closes out Dynamite with something big. Absolutely. How come every star is regulated to just one quarter for the most part, or one segment? So this isn't rocket science. If I could do that, if somebody mentally, you know, disabled could do that, if somebody in a vegetative state could figure that out, I mean, it's not hard to figure out. So I think it's Megan Bain or it's going to be Camille as far as who's coming in. But, you know, on the women's side, I think they can use another few women's wrestlers. The men's side, they don't need any more. You know, Tony, your driveway is already filled with too many cars. Soon you're going to have to hire a valet to park it on someone else's driveway. You got too many fucking cars already. And most of them you can't drive. Thank you, Jimmy. Jimmy! Hey, Jimmy! Dream 101, thoughts on Triple H saying that WWE is a TV show, not a sport? Well, he said it's a TV show about a sport. You know, it's sports entertainment. Look, it's kind of like, I know this is going to get people mad, but sorry. I mean, we tell it like it is. Triple H has been in that fucking company since 1995. He's been around Vince McMahon for almost 30 years. For 28 years, Triple H working under McMahon, all the DX stuff, all the Katie Vick stuff, all the Evolution stuff, all the singles stuff, all the China stuff, all the stuff that he did. You think during those 28 years, every time Vince said, Hunter, we're going to have you do this, you think he sat in the corner like that fucking, Muttley, the dog? It's his mindset. It's his mindset. He's been working for the guy for 28 years. He's younger and he's smart and he's adapting to today. He is more in tune to social media and outside. You see even now with sports and personalities. Tonight, they're in the Garden. Hey, let's put a Knicks guy out there. Jalen Brunson, whatever his name is, the MVP. Let's put him out there. Biggest baby face in the Garden. That's the equivalent. If this was the mid-'80s, it's like going to the Garden and fucking putting a Mets player there, and then Logan Paul brings out Bill Buckner. You know what I mean? Or if it's a Yankee, if they're at Yankee Stadium, you bring out Derek Jeter, and you have Logan Paul bring out Pedro Martinez. It's not rocket science. They're smart like that. That there are differences, but Triple H saying that it's a TV show based on sport, that's pretty much what Vince has been saying since the 80s. It's sports entertainment. It's just a different way to say it. It's a TV show based on sport. I don't have any issue with it. We know what wrestling is. And, this is why, please don't get mad at Triple H. And I'm not defending him, but you got to realize something. People hate when I say this, but I'm saying it anyway. Ring of Honor, AEW, GCW, New Japan, All Japan, Dragon Gate, AEW, any promotion you want to bring up. If the match is scripted, they're all the same. It's just a different type. They're all movies. Just one might be comedy or more oriented. One might be a little more drama. One might be a little bit more violent. One might be a little bit more strong language. One might be a little bit this. They're all sports entertainment. Yeah, but Ring of Honor is honor. It's fucking sports entertainment. But they take things seriously. They follow the rules. It's sports entertainment. Some of it is very niche. Some of it is not. Some of it is episodic television like WWE. Some of them is just straight up matches. It's all sports entertainment. So what Triple H says, it's the same thing for every promotion that I just mentioned. They're just all with their own style. Sometimes people show me like music videos from Japan or music videos from Italy. I know there's not as many as they used to, but they show me from different countries. And other than the languages being different and culture being a little different, it's pretty much the same, premise. It's just different spins, different cultures, different styles, but it's all the same. Still music. That's what wrestling is. So Triple H saying that there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. I'd rather him say that than to say anything about predetermined or this and that. When you say it's a TV show about sport, you don't have to say that it's predetermined or scripted or anything like that. All right. Thank you, Dream. Damn. Is that his name? Yeah. Damn Hayval. I had to look closely. I was like, damn. Thank you, damn, for the 10 spot. Can't listen now because I need the listening material for work tomorrow. But anyway, I think Solo needs his own wise man. Who would I pick? He'd say William Regal, but maybe who else could be a dastardly foil? Man, I don't think there is anybody. Please, no Arn Anderson. Just because he's gone from AEW, please, no. No. I can't think of anybody. Don't give me Rikishi simply because he's bloodline. I don't think there is anybody. I personally think Tonga Loa, this is nothing against Tonga Loa, but I already am getting the same vibes I did about Cruz del Toro and Joaquin Wilde. You know, in NXT, it was different. When they were with Santos Escobar, it had a different feel. When they came up to the main roster, and they aligned with Rey Mysterio, they aligned with Zelina Vega, they became the LWO, I'm like, all right, you know, it's pretty obvious that the reason why they're in that group is because a faction needs to be more than 2 or 3 people. I never felt that they were going to get pushed on TV. I never felt they were going to become long-term tag team champions. You know, I don't care they're with Rey Mysterio. I don't care if they were the greatest babyface alive today. It just felt like, okay, we're all Latin. You know, it's almost like the Wayans brothers. You remember the intro for the Wayans brothers? And we're colored. Like, it's like the same thing with Joaquin Wilde and Cruz del Toro. And we're Latin. You know, they just felt like bodies filling. I never felt that they were really, and if you noticed, they're the ones that got the pins most of the time. I'm getting that same vibe with Tonga Loa. I think in the end, Tonga Loa is going to be that one that's going to eat the pins more than anybody else. Jacob Fatu takes incredible fucking bumps. You know, even Tama Tonga might be the best one taking the bumps. That crazy shit today with Kevin Owens through the table. I mean, Tama Tonga is a bump machine, and his facials, everything about it. Tonga Loa, with all due, there's a reason why it was Hunico and Epico back in the day. You know, he looks more like a Latino bouncer than anything else. I think Tonga Loa in the bloodline is not for the long haul. I don't think this faction is going to be for the long haul. I think down the line, Jacob Fatu can be a bona fide solo star, no pun intended, to Solo Sikoa. I don't think he should remain in a faction. You know, listen, Roman Reigns reuniting with the Usos, yes, it's bloodline versus bloodline. But there's a reason why for so long Roman was by himself. The Usos were by themselves. Because at the end of the day, you know, there's some people who are big enough that they should be there. That's why Cody's not in a faction. That's why Randy Orton is not in a faction. Yeah, he'll group with some people. There's some people that are bigger than that. And I don't think Solo Sikoa's group is going to be around for the long haul. Once you get through bloodline versus bloodline, I think that's when you're going to see things split. And I think some people will go out on their own. I think Tonga Loa is definitely not I think Solo Sikoa will end up being solo. No pun intended. I don't think in the long run. Right now, let me say it like this. There ain't nobody out there that could go toe-to-toe with Paul Heyman on the mic, for the most part. And CM Punk, unless CM Punk gets so injury prone that he decides he wants to be a manager, and that still wouldn't even work. Paul Heyman will eat up and spit out anybody that he has a promo exchange with. So who are you better off with nobody with Solo Sikoa's group? Because by having nobody, you don't have to worry about Paul Heyman eating them up, spitting them out, you know, eating them again and shitting them out. Because that person just looks like a deer in headlights coming back. There ain't nobody out there. There's nobody. I mean, there are legends. There are people that could talk, but it doesn't fit. And honestly, because they're so bloodline, acknowledge me. You know, everybody in that group is blood. You have to bring somebody in that's blood. And the only name that comes up is Rikishi. And I really don't know if I want to see Rikishi as a manager. You know, I like Rikishi, but he ain't no spectacular promo cutter, brother. The Rock can't be a manager. The Rock still does movies. The Rock has his own business. The Rock has that football league. The Rock is on the board of directors. You know, everybody was like, oh, The Rock is going to stick around. The Rock is going to do this. The Rock is going to do that. That motherfucker had that UFC movie set all along. That guy was never sticking around after WrestleMania. I'm telling you, let's see what happens on Wednesday's special. But from what I was told behind the scenes from a few people who have already seen it, they're like, DT, you know, you're going to piss off some people next week. So I think people are going to realize right away that, you know, they realized if they fuck with the fans and let the fans believe that Cody was not going to finish his story, make them want Cody more. Remember when we compared it to the Daniel Bryan storyline? The difference is that Daniel Bryan was not manufactured. That was authentic. WWE did not expect that from the fans. WWE adapted to the Yes Movement. This was a WWE manufactured Yes Movement. The only difference is Yes was replaced with We Want Cody. That's why even with our WrestleMania predictions, go back and look at our prediction show. The first line in our predictions said #We Want Roman. Soon as WrestleMania is over, they were going to start a manufactured storyline where the fans are all going to chant, "We want Roman." I mean, we're not geniuses. You could see it a mile away. And the reason why we were right on that is because we realized they did that with Cody. It worked with Cody. It'll work with Roman. And if you really examine the Roman Reigns storyline, Roman should be a monster heel right now. That guy deserted the WWE. He deserted Paul Heyman. He deserted the WWE Universe. He left. He disappeared. He allowed Solo Sikoa to get drunk, high, and totally whacked out of his mind with power. He allowed all of this chaos to continue for 3 months. That is someone that cares. If you really dissect this storyline, if you really want to split hairs, Roman Reigns is an asshole for staying out this long. But as soon as that cell phone rings, we're all going to cheer the fuck out of it. And it'll be a distant memory. Okay, thank you for that. Dan would also said, what about Solo versus Cody with Arn as his new wise man? I don't want to see Arn with that. Listen, Arn Anderson's best days, even cutting promos, are way behind. You know, Arn Anderson, if you think of his AEW promo work, everybody remembers just one thing. Now, I'm doing a hand gesture right now. Just one thing. I mean, he was basically with a clipboard. You know, Arn Anderson is a lot heavier now. Arn Anderson cut a passionate promo about the Four Horsemen, but when it comes to Bloodline, there's no relation there. You know, what is he going to say? Oh, Solo, I wrestled your uncle, your cousin. Like, there's really no, I would not put Arn Anderson with him. Absolutely not. I don't really think I want to see Arn Anderson in any capacity unless they show an episode one day where he shows up and he's there as a guest of Cody's, and then somebody lays his ass out. As long as they don't pee on him, like Steve Austin. You know, there's a lot of people that still don't know about that legendary segment. Yeah, Steve Austin at one point peed on Arn Anderson on camera. Bernard, do I still talk to Joey 924? He would love a reunion. No, I do not. I have not talked to Joey in about 15 years. I have told people that I know who used to talk to him that if you do happen to speak to him, tell him that we say hi, we send our regards, and would love to do an episode. Listen, if any of you out there know him, used to have an email, a DM, something, listen, I've searched social media, can't find him. I've searched old emails, can't find anything. He stopped podcasting many years ago, and I can't find any contact info at all. If anyone out there ends up reaching him, tell him that Kevin and I send our regards, that, it's been a lot of years. I'm definitely not the asshole that I used to be. He was an asshole too. And if he still watches wrestling, we would love to have him on for a night. Have a little reunion show. Absolutely. Unfortunately for Matt Zombie, I've heard rumors that he's passed away. And honestly, if you knew Matt Zombie, it wouldn't surprise you, but at the same time, you would be like, yeah, that guy partied his ass off. He probably partied right up to the end. Brian Damage is still online, but Brian Damage doesn't do shows anymore. Timmy Austin has obviously passed away. Captain Ivan, never recovered from his stroke, so he can't really talk. I'm not bringing Captain Lenny on here. So, really, it's Joey 924, Black Moses, maybe Smoked Out. I don't know. We'll see. We will see. I'm definitely would be willing to do one. And Bernard says, how did my family react to my brief stint in wrestling in the 2000s? He's always been curious how they reacted to the whole thing. Well, when I started doing the cannoli stuff, my brother loved it. My brother's wife was blown away because she don't know wrestling. I don't even think she ever heard of Hulk Hogan. That's no joke. And my brother's wife is now 50. So she grew up in the 80s, and she still, I don't think, really even heard. My brother's kids loved it. My mom hated it because she was worried about me because of my car wreck. And, a lot of my injuries were masqueraded by pain medicine. When you take a lot of pain medicine, you feel great. Unfortunately, you ever see the episode with Star Trek? Honestly, this is how I compare my body. Do you ever see the episode of Star Trek? Any of you go back that watched old episodes with William Shatner? Do you remember the Star Trek episode that it was Captain Pike? Do you remember Captain Pike, who he was disabled and he couldn't move around? And then all of a sudden, like remember the aliens with the throbbing that looked like testicles? Remember the aliens? And they allowed Captain Pike on the planet, and it showed Captain Pike like walking around with the girl and he's happy and everything. That's me on drugs. That's all of us on narcotics. That episode is narcotics. You could be disabled. You could be in crazy pain. You can't even walk like Captain Pike. You take a bunch of Vicodin, you're on that planet fucking walking around thinking that you're great. That's what that episode was. That's me. Seriously. God rest his soul, Chris Candido. His brother knows how much I cared about him. You all know, what I was supposed to be on and everything. So, my friendship with Chris Candido was very, very good, strong. I've always told this story. He wrestled for XPW one time in Philly against Shane Douglas. And I had picked him up from the hotel, him and Tammy, and we were going to go to a drive-thru to get some food. And I picked him up, and he was on crutches. And I was like, what the hell happened to you? He's like, yeah, my hamstring, he's like, no, I'll be fine. He says, I'm going to take something a little while, I'll be fine. So he gets in my car. He can't even get in the car. That's how bad his shape he's in. He's got crutches and everything. So we go get food. We go to the building, this and that. He's moving around with the crutches. I don't know what he took, but I would say probably about an hour and a half later, he's fucking running in the ring. He's running the ropes. And I'm like, holy shit. He's like, yeah, it hurts, but, I'll make it through it. And then if you watch that match, I think he went through a table at the very end of the match, and I think he went ass first through the table. Look at his midsection. You literally see his hernia go like this. But that's what that episode is. My mom was very worried about me because I was masquerading my pain. The fact is, and, Monty and the Pharaoh I was on yesterday, I got into some really deep personal stuff. One thing that I did not get into very much was depression. One of the reasons why I did this stuff was depression. I was very depressed that my car accident took away from me a lot of what I love to do, playing softball, wrestling, this and that. So when I had the opportunity to do a little bit, and I would take some medication, I would also, therapy, fucking gallons of the blue stuff you put on your leg. I don't remember what it's called. But I did it because I wanted to convince myself that I could still do the things that I wanted to do before my car accident. And, I was able to do it for a little while, but the pain got too extraordinary and I had to stop. But my brother went to almost every show that I was involved with. When I first became a heel for VPW and I showed up with Heroes, my brother was in the crowd. My brother and my two little nieces, who were like 6 and 7 years old at the time, they turned heel as well. Because I brought in Heroes, I brought in wine, soda, cannolis, and the whole one side of the building was just my friends and family. And I had all of these Spanish guys that worked for my dad's store come in, and we made them look like Spanish servants to try to boost that Italian Howard Beach stuff to get people even angrier. And I have video, I think I showed it here. And they walked into the building, and everybody in the building thinks they're getting food, free cannolis, free drinks. And they all walk to one side of the ring, and they're only feeding that one side of the ring. Could you imagine if I did that in the Bronx or in Brooklyn, where that neighborhood is more, of a certain ethnicity, and you see only one side of the building, some Italian Guidos and everything, and they're all eating and everybody else is watching them? I got to put that video on here one day again soon. It's the funniest thing. You see all these hicks in Suffolk County want to beat the shit out of my family, and they're eating and they're drinking. And that was just, my thing. My dad hates everything that I do with wrestling. He hates the shows. He hates the podcast. He hated what I did before, because my father would always say to me, if you have all that time to do those fucking shows, and you have time to get more insurance customers, that's where and he's probably right. My dad hates this stuff. Now it's a little bit different because I pulled back a lot and I do it after hours. Guys say to my dad, I'm not doing it at 10 o'clock at night. I'm not doing insurance work at 10 o'clock at night on a Friday. But man, he used to rip me apart, especially when people used to show up at my office. And because I used to get surprise visitors from people that just showed up because they knew where my office was, because I used to sell all the wrestling tickets out of the office. And sometimes when my father would walk in and somebody would be there, and like I would introduce him, and he'd be nice and everything, and then he leaves. He's like, what the fuck you doing? Why are you bringing wrestling stuff in your insurance office? So he was not a fan. No, my dad was just wanting me to keep my priorities in order. I love doing this stuff, and I love doing shows, and I want to do more content just like anyone else. Did you see, that guy that does those KSI shoot interviews? Anybody remember his name? He stopped doing the podcast with Morocco. That pissed me off because I loved Morocco. I used to love his stories. He just stopped doing shows with Shane Douglas. And the reason why he stopped doing shows with Shane Douglas was because the viewership tanked and they're not making money. In fact, they're losing money. He's doing all of this crazy production work. He's about to have a kid. Congrats to him. The ending was mutual on both sides, but he just said point blank in the video, he's like, look, I'm not going to do this and lose money. I got a wife, I got kids, I got responsibilities. I'm putting in all these hours of work. I got to make something out of it. James, is that his name? Yeah. So it's same thing. Like Kev, God bless him. He's feeling better, but a lot of Kev had a pretty serious cardiac event 2 weeks ago. And he works too much in the music scene, doing the shows and everything else. And the doctor told him, you got to rest more. You got to pull back a little bit, and sometimes we do too much because we love it. But also, sometimes we do it because we need to make money, pay bills. So my dad was just looking out for me like, look, if you're making money, good money, great. But if you're just doing it simply because you love wrestling, what are you, stupid? Grow up. That's what my father used to say to me. And trust me, my father Googles. My father's not an internet guy, but he knows how to use Google. And he types in my name, and once or twice a year, he'll say to me, what the fuck is this? The fuck you putting up here? And, I don't know what to tell him at these days. He's kind of like mellowed out now. Ever since, he got into his 70s, he's mellowed out. So, yeah, I'm like Joe Hendry. He says my name, and it appears. Nero Faye, my thoughts on the presidential debate. Nero, I mentioned it briefly earlier. I watched, I'd say about 80% of it yesterday, and I just don't know what to say. I don't think, listen, if you put a gun to my head and said you got to vote for one of them, I would have to vote for Trump. Only because he's got still, I don't know. I can't even say that. I don't even know who his VP pick is going to be at. I'd be like, just take me out of my misery. Both of them were embarrassing yesterday. Both of them were embarrassing. Yesterday is why I don't follow politics anymore. We have been lied to. Listen, we should all be in Hawaii at 6. Every American Bo Dallas should be reaching out to right now. We've been lied to. We've been misled. We've been convinced that our president is fine and this and that. He looks like he's on fucking catnip and Xanax and Tony Khan stash and sleeping pills. He's just, that's not, if he was just my retired grandfather sitting at home, I would be worried. Be like, Grandpa, snap out of it. Come on, let's go fishing. That's our president. That's crazy. You realize how many people lied to us, even with COVID, when Trump was president. Look at how many people lied to us. How many people manipulated the system, even business. Our economy is so fucked up right now, and we talk about prices for everything, from food to taxes, insurance, and everything else. Remember, if your taxes have gone up, if your gasoline has gone up, if your food prices have gone up, if your insurance has gone up, understand there is a government that approves this, because they have to approve it. Otherwise, it would be accused of price gouging. When something goes up 50%, if the government doesn't sign off on it, they could accuse price gouging. It's just like when Sandy hit in our neighborhood. Gasoline was $2.30 a gallon, and then the next day it was $4.80. And any gas stations that tried to sell gas for that much, they were supposedly going to be in trouble for it. The government signs off on this. I have an insurance company, homeowners insurance, that I write with for my customers. I just got something in the mail last week saying that starting August, their rates are going to go up 40%. How do I explain to my customers that someone who was paying $2,000 a year for the house policy before is now going to pay $2,800 a year? I remember that the New York State Insurance Department approved this increase. So I hate government. I hate everything about it. I don't like either side. I'm embarrassed what I saw yesterday. To me, that was just a joke. It was just a joke. It was bad. It was very bad. Well, let's talk about a couple other things with SmackDown. We'll get into some more questions. SmackDown tonight, obviously the premise of it was to add additional participants in Money in the Bank. One name surprised the shit out of me. Kevin and I have nailed every participant in Money in the Bank so far, except for one. And I think you all could figure it out. Yeah. Although I have a feeling he's going to get screwed. Tonight was about building participants for Money in the Bank. With all due respect, Pretty Deadly taking on Street Profits next week. This is kind of like the Dijak effect, like I said. TKO Group Holdings and Endeavor, they're not going to have people sit for months collecting a check, doing nothing. Yes, they work some house shows. The Street Profits, I don't understand it. I don't understand it. You, honestly, if we're being real for a minute, you look back at the last 18 months, I don't want to say 2 years, because I thought SummerSlam 22, I think it was SummerSlam 22, when they were wearing all white, I thought that they were on a roll. You know what it feels like? I don't know if people will agree with me on this. If you remember SummerSlam, Usos versus Street Profits, they were having a feud. We all thought, most of us, that Street Profits were winning those tag titles at SummerSlam. Pretty sure it was SummerSlam. They were wearing the white outfits. They had just had a match, I think some people rated it 5 stars. They had some amazing matches with the Usos. And ever since then, to me, they have been squashed like grapes. Creatively, match-wise, you know, they're wearing suits one week, they're with Bobby Lashley, then they're with fucking whatever her name is, then they're not wearing suits, and then, Montez Ford, like growl, like with that growl snarl on his face, and then a week after he's popping hands with fans. WWE's done an absolute shit job with the Street Profits the last 18 plus months. You know what it reminds me of a little bit? It reminds me of John Cena and Christian. I know it's a stretch, but for anybody that remembers that time frame, John Cena obviously was the future of the WWE, but Christian, who was feuding with Cena at the time, I don't think anybody ever expected to have Christian get that kind of momentum during his feud with Cena. And it literally, legitimately, and Kevin and I were doing shows at the time, and I remember us covering it. It literally felt, you didn't feel it in one night, but after a few weeks, you're like, holy shit, it feels like WWE pulled the rug from underneath Christian. Like they intentionally, abruptly halted any momentum that he was getting. And we look back on it and we always felt, do I think Christian would have surpassed Cena? No. But it certainly felt that WWE was like, nah, we're not having him overtake Cena. And they pulled back. It feels the same way with the Street Profits towards the Usos. They got on such a momentum. It kind of felt like, nah, we got Bloodline Storyline building. Nah, we're going to pull back on the Street Profits. There's no other explanation to see how they've been used for the last 18 plus months overall. It's ridiculous. So them facing Pretty Deadly next week, this is more of a case like, all right, you're on the roster, you got to work. Anybody feel like Street Profits is suddenly going to get a little momentum and maybe finally get those tag belts? Or Pretty Deadly might get another taste? Not to me. Not by a long shot. They still had Grayson Waller and Austin Theory that they got to kind of build. And Austin Theory, he had the swelling of the face, so they had to pull him back for 2 weeks. So they could have a match next week. As far as Money in the Bank qualifiers tonight, Madison Square Garden crowd was extremely hot. Kayla Braxton's last night at the Garden, WWE as well. She was on TV a little bit, not much. I have a feeling, this is just a wild guess, I have a feeling after SmackDown went off the air, maybe somebody came out and brought Caleb Braxton out there, and maybe they toasted him. Maybe Cody Rhodes comes out. I hope that WWE did that. I hope to hear, again, I have no knowledge. We started doing this show right after SmackDown ended, but I am hoping that WWE brought Caleb Braxton out to the ring to say goodbye to the fans. But the crowd tonight was hot. And unfortunately, because it's on Fox, the censor button was out of control. The audio was butchered many times tonight. We opened up with a crazy brawl with the Bloodline, Kevin Owens, Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes. You got Owens, frog splashing, Tonga through the table, Randy Orton with RKO, Cody Rhodes, insane crossroads. Dude was on Tongaloa. Jacob Fatu not there. And the whole night, Paul keeps asking Solo Sikoa, where's Jacob? Where's Jacob? And it's kind of like they're teasing at Jacob Fatu, because remember, tonight was supposed to be the Bloodline acknowledgement ceremony, and everybody thought it was to put Jacob Fatu officially in the Bloodline. But no, this was to anoint Solo Sikoa as the tribal chief. Something we talked about before. But throughout the night, we're thinking that there's going to be a Jacob Fatu induction ceremony, and then we're wondering, will Jey Uso show up? There was some rumblings that maybe Roman Reigns could show up tonight, which I said all along it didn't make sense. Not before Money in the Bank, doesn't make sense. But that was kind of the build. But they had a crazy-ass brawl. Bloodline comes out to the ring, minus Jacob Fatu, and here comes Randy, Kevin Owens, and Cody from the back up the rampway. They're brawling there, causing chaos. Nick Aldis won't let it happen. And I like the realism. I like hearing Nick Aldis yelling to Cody Rhodes, not on the show, we're not doing it here tonight. And Cody's like, why? This is the best part of the show. Little things like that is little nuances that we did not get under the Vince. Vince was too organized at times. But tonight it felt like disarray. And listen, let's be honest, the crowds pop big time when there's chaos. You don't want too much chaos, because then you start getting numb to it. I think that's one of the problems with AEW also. When referees can't stop anything, and people just run-ins and, clusterfucks and crazy shit outside the ring, after a while, it just becomes the norm. When you have chaos and it's unexpected, it's a bigger energy rush. But, it ends up that Kevin Owens, Cody Rhodes, and Randy Orton are escorted out of the building, out of Madison Square Garden. And as I said earlier in the night, when Cody Rhodes was cutting his promo, he was bad-mouthing Solo Sikoa. I don't see a tribal chief. I don't see a head of the table. I see a seat filler, throwing shots. But when Cody said that, and I only took like one screenshot tonight, but when Cody said that he should be defending his undisputed WWE Championship tonight in Madison Square Garden, Randy Orton's looking at him like, yeah, against me, motherfucker. Against me. Randy is so RKO and Cody Rhodes after Money in the Bank is over with, especially if they lose. Especially if they lose. But that was pretty awesome. We'll talk about Paul Heyman again in a moment. Now, as far as the qualifying matches tonight, that's a little too small. That's not. Tiffany Stratton defeated Candice LeRae and Jade Cargill in a three-way to advance to Money in the Bank, which we all called. All of you did as well. How they explained Jade Cargill losing this was during the match, Nia Jax comes out. Now, Nia Jax seems to be rooting for Tiffany Stratton, but Tiffany got a crazy pop tonight from the fans. Tiffany Stratton is one of those, like, not clear-cut baby faces, but is over with the fans, kind of what LA Knight was when he started really getting over. LA Knight was not a baby face when he was getting over. It just organically developed into what it is now. Tiffany Stratton, it feels not like LA Knight, but the same road. So I think ultimately Nia Jax is going to squash Tiffany Stratton. Or maybe Tiffany Stratton cashes in on a briefcase. Now, you're probably saying to me, but Bayley's the champion. I think Nia Jax is getting her flowers very, very soon. But during this match, Nia comes out, Bianca comes out, Indy Hartwell comes out. Indy Hartwell, and this I did not like at all. There was one point during the match where Bianca Belair and Nia Jax are arguing outside the ring. And the referee leaves the ring, goes to the outside, and is trying to separate them. And I'm saying to myself, just in storyline, referee, what the fuck are you doing? Neither one are managers. Neither one are in this match. These are just two people arguing with each other out of the ring. The referee's outside the ring, trying to separate the two, and it just looks so incredibly stupid because why does the referee even give a shit about these two arguing? So Indy Hartwell takes Jade Cargill and throws her into the ring post. And listen, I defend Jade Cargill as much as anybody out there. But it was she reminded me of, and this is weird, but some people will get a laugh out. She reminded me of Nick Patrick tonight. Do you remember when Bret Hart hit Nick Patrick? Was it the match with Hogan and Sting where Nick Patrick was going to go for the pin and Bret Hart hit him? And Nick Patrick, when he fell backwards, he was like this. It was like really, really like, I mean, I laughed. When Bret hit him that time, I laughed. When Jade Cargill hit the post, it was like kind of like the reverse Nick Patrick. Starcade 97, thank you, yes. Go watch how Jade Cargill sold getting thrown into the corner. Honestly, it just reminded me of like the reverse Nick Patrick. She fell backwards, but I was like, man, she did not sell that. It looked goofy. But that allowed Tiffany Stratton to get the upper hand on Candice LeRae. Tiffany Stratton hits a moonsault, gets the win. Tiffany Stratton advances. Nia Jax awfully happy about that victory. Let's go to the other women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Another match, extremely predictable. Blair Davenport, I know a lot of you thought she was going to advance, but I said last week she has not done anything on the main roster yet. She should not be in Money in the Bank this year. She hasn't done enough yet. Naomi obviously deserved that spot. Indy Hartwell, I have nothing against, but Naomi, you have to put her on Money in the Bank. So she wins this match. She advances. And look, we're going to have a Money in the Bank without Jade Cargill or Bianca Belair having a match unless they get a rematch against the Unholy Union, which I don't know if that's going to happen. You kind of feel like something bigger, SummerSlam, would be in line for those two. I don't know if they're going to face each other, which a lot of people think Bianca and Jade will have. I think that's way too soon. You don't want Bianca have to carry the match that much one-sided. You know, Jade is learning. She's still got a ways to go. I don't think you pull that trigger with that match yet. I think it is way too soon for that. Yeah, and thank you for saying that. I did say last week, Rams fan, it's to pacify the fans too. Because I saw tonight a lot of people butthurt, Candice deserves better. What are you, fucking dense? She got a title match on 2 fucking premium live events in the last couple of months. They let her go all the way overseas like twice. Her and India, Candice deserves better? What? What do you want her to do? Be tag champs right now? Are you nuts? Like, what do you mean she deserves better? You know, if you want to say that about someone, say it about Michin, who's like 1-19. You know, people just like this. Naomi's win was to pacify fans as well. No question about it. The men's side, this surprised me. It surprised me, but now I think we know our Money in the Bank winner. If you look at the participants already in the Money in the Bank, you know, you have like Carmelo Hayes, you have Andrade, you have Jey Uso. You know, these are guys who are high flyers that could really, you know, that style. I thought Santos Escobar would fit like a glove, that LA Knight and Logan Paul would cancel each other out. Now, we know we're getting Logan Paul. Oh, shit. I just thought of something. I just had a brainstorm. I know on the surface you're going to say, no, but let it sink in. Let it sink in. I think this could happen. All right. I'm going to throw a scenario out to you right now. I know what you're going to say. Let it sink in and don't agree with me because you want to make me feel better. LA Knight wins Money in the Bank. Logan Paul refuses to face LA Knight. Logan Paul trolling LA Knight. Nope, you're not facing me. So LA Knight says, you know what? At fucking SummerSlam, I'm cashing in this briefcase. I want your title at SummerSlam. What do you think about that? I do not want LA Knight to hold it for 9 months, 10 months, a year. Who's he going to cash in on? He's going to go to Raw and cash in on a Gunther or a Damian Priest or Seth Rollins. He going to cash in on a Cody Rhodes? It ain't happening. What do you think about LA Knight cashing in Money in the Bank on Logan Paul? I think the fans would pop the fuck out of it. Now, yes, you're going to get the busted opens. You're going to get the usual suspects in the podcasting world. What, LA Knight, you got to fucking go for the heavyweight title. What the fuck? Yo, you got to go for the... Anybody would agree. Duh. You go for the world championship. You go for the biggest prize of them all. You don't go for Logan Paul. No. I say Logan Paul cashes in. I mean, LA Knight cashes in on Logan Paul. I like it. Because I think the fans want to see Logan Paul lose that championship. I think LA Knight cashes that briefcase in on Logan Paul. Logan Paul is just fucking perplexed. He's upset. He's worried. LA Knight beats him for that championship. Yes, it's not the World Heavyweight Championship, but Cody Rhodes ain't losing the belt to him. No one on the Raw roster I could think about right now is going to lose to LA Knight. Would you rather have LA Knight cash in on a heavyweight champion and lose, or cash in on Logan Paul and win? That's what it comes down to. I know a lot of people think Jey Uso is winning that briefcase, but I'm throwing an idea out there right now. Would you rather see LA Knight cash in on Logan Paul and win, or cash in on a world champion and lose? For me, I'd rather see him cash in on Logan Paul and win. I think I'm going to go with that prediction. I mean, I might change my mind a week from now. We could change minds. But what do you think about that? LA Knight wins tonight. And, you know, we had, as we said earlier, we had a little bit of controversy. Logan Paul, you know, for those that don't follow basketball, the Indiana Pacers eliminated the New York Knicks in the playoffs this year. A lot of us thought that the Knicks had a legitimate chance at possibly going to the NBA Finals. And one of their players, his name is Tyrese Halliburton. I wrote it down because I don't remember the name. Logan Paul brings him out. Now, anybody that is a Knicks fan that goes to the Garden absolutely despises Tyrese Halliburton and the Pacers. So when Logan Paul brings him out there, they're chanting, "Fuck the Pacers," and Fox is butchering the censor button. So Jalen Brunson who is a superstar in the Knicks, is also sitting at ringside. And he's flashed on the camera. And you know what's coming. Confrontation between the two. Although no physicality, I don't think the NBA will allow it. I'm glad there was no physicality. Because back in the day, I used to hate regular, sports athletes showing up on a guest Raw and doing a wrestling move, and they look like us jumping in a pool, and the wrestlers have to sell it like big time. I hated it every time I saw it. That's why when Ken Jeong landed on his head outside the ring, I almost had an orgasm. I was like, good. I want that to happen to every fucking Raw guest host that comes out there. Nothing personal against him, I know he's got problems with his eyes if you ever see those commercials. But I don't like Ken Jeong. I don't like him at all, to be honest with you. Fuck him. Fuck the Fox censor buttons today. Fuck Biden. Fuck Trump, and fuck Ken Jeong. Summerfest. Yes, that's right. Summerfest. The Summerfest. Kind of reminds me like something Bret Hart would say, because he always would put the before some words. So anyway, the WCW. That's what Bret Hart used to say. The WCW. So anyway, Logan Paul brings out Tyrese Halliburton, and we get the match, and then Logan Paul's trying to get Tyrese physically involved in the match. So Jalen Brunson hops over the guardrail, and he's got a chair, and they're having a little bit of a face-off, teasing that something may happen. And Logan Paul ends up getting knocked loopy. And we think Santos Escobar is going to steal a victory. But lo and behold, LA Knight gets the win. Blunt force trauma. And I'm like, whoa, did not see that coming. But then again, Logan Paul and LA Knight is not happening until SummerSlam. LA Knight win the briefcase, cash in on Logan Paul. Hasn't been done before against an IC champ, a U.S. champ, I should say. I think that would be fucking awesome. All right. I think that was it as far as matches tonight, right? I think that was it as far as matches. If I'm forgetting a match, somebody please correct me before we move on. We've gone 2 hours and 11 minutes already. Wow, time flies when you're having fun. The Bloodline ceremony. Solo Sikoa has given Paul Heyman the impression that he's taken Paul Heyman's advice. You're my wise man. I always loved you. Tonight, you're gonna officially, he's like teasing a ceremony for Paul Heyman. So we know something big is happening at the end of the night, and that's what's closing out SmackDown. So the Bloodline hits the ring with Paul Heyman, and Jacob Fatu is there. So Solo Sikoa lied to Paul Heyman. And tonight was the night. Tonight is the turning point in the Bloodline storyline. Tonight is officially the turning point. Tonight was the night that Solo Sikoa officially proclaims himself the tribal chief. And if you remember, about 6 weeks ago, for one of the DTKC show previews, we took Solo Sikoa and we put that necklace, we photoshopped it on him. What's the name of that necklace again? Somebody in the chat, please let me know. That's what we were getting tonight. So the Bloodline all dressed in their suits. Paul Heyman is there as well. And Solo Sikoa confronts Jacob Fatu. Well, first he confronts Tama Tonga. Acknowledge me. What is it called? Nobody wrote it yet. Okay. Maybe you all don't know either. But anyway, Solo Sikoa tells Tama Tonga to acknowledge him. He acknowledges him. Then he goes to Tongaloa, and I don't know what Tongaloa was trying to do, but it seemed like he was kind of like trying to like have a certain accent about the way he talked, but it was kind of, I don't know if anybody got that vibe as well. Tongaloa, it was just weird tonight. Ulafala. Thank you very much, douche. Ulafala. I think that's how you pronounce it, right? So Paul Heyman has got, the Ulafala. Ulafala. Fafala. Anybody ever have fafala? Isn't that made for like babies? It's like pastina or something like that. Ulafala. So, you know what the funny thing is? I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but every time I say it, people are writing back ulafala. Like, if I'm pronouncing it wrong, there's no way of me knowing. I can't hear you saying it. Some of you are probably saying like, it's ula, Anyway, Tamatonga acknowledges Solo Sikoa as his tribal chief. Tongaloa acknowledges Solo Sikoa. Jacob Fatu emphatically expresses his love for Solo Sikoa. He acknowledges him as well. And I have the wrong emphasis there. All right, whatever. The necklace. The ceremonial necklace, I would call it that. The flowered necklace. You know what it looks like to me? Jalapeno peppers. That's what it looks like to me. Honestly, I almost bought one on Amazon, but it looked like a whole like necklace filled with jalapeno peppers, all rubber, obviously. I was going to wear it on the show, and I'm like, why? Why am I even going to, for what? So anyway, Paul Heyman is holding the necklace that looks like a giant thing of jalapeno peppers. And Solo Sikoa is giving Paul Heyman this one opportunity to acknowledge him as his tribal chief. And the crowd is trying to get Paul Heyman, no, don't do it. Don't do it. And Paul Heyman is nervous. What he does, with his facials. And he's like, doesn't have the words, and he's holding it, and he's nervous, and the crowd is getting into it. And he says, I don't acknowledge you as my tribal chief. You are not my tribal chief. And Solo Sikoa loses it. He's fucking livid. The other members of the bloodline are pissed off. Paul Heyman realizes, you fucked up. You fucked up. You fucked up. Solo Sikoa, now we're wondering, Paul Heyman don't really take bumps anymore. So now we're wondering, what are they going to do to Paul Heyman? So Solo Sikoa knocks him down, punches him, similar to what Roman Reigns, obviously Roman Reigns gave him the Superman punch back then, but Solo punched him in the face. He goes down. And then he instructs, I think it was Jacob Fatu, to climb the ropes. And Paul Heyman is laid out near the middle of the ring. And I thought kind of like a Superfly splash was coming, but it was more of like a shot to like the chest area. I don't want to say similar to like Benoit, where Benoit would land sometimes with his flying headbutts, but it landed a little bit to the side of Paul Heyman. It gave him Paul Heyman the Simone spike as well. And but that's not it. That's not it. They want to bring him out to the ring. And I'm thinking there ain't no way that Jacob Fatu is going to splash Paul Heyman through the table outside the ring. So, yeah, like the Umaga flying headbutt. Yes, that is definitely a good one, Rams fan. That's the best way to describe it. Absolutely. But they take him to the outside of the ring, and, Corey Graves, Wade Barrett, they get out of Dodge. It's not safe to be around ringside. They clear the table, and just like remnants of S.H.I.E.L.D., they pick up Paul Heyman. And I tell you, if you think about wrestlers who have been put through the table before, from Bobby Lashley to others who are big guys, you realize Paul Heyman is obviously, unfortunately, morbidly obese. But how much could Paul Heyman possibly weigh? 340? I used to weigh 365. I don't have the picture available right now. Do I? I don't normally keep that picture. No, I don't. Okay, good. We ain't showing it tonight. I used to weigh 365. If I posted that picture, I'm curious if people would say if I looked heavier than Paul Heyman. I'm obviously a lot taller, though. But Rick says no shot. He's 340. He ain't 400 pounds. He's not that heavy. He's very short. I met Paul Heyman a few times. You know, he's not very tall. But they pick up Paul Heyman. You would have thought Paul Heyman was 500 pounds. I mean, they had because Paul Heyman obviously doesn't know how to push off, but they pick up Paul Heyman, and Paul Heyman is like going like this. And they had kind of like a little bit of a rough time to pick up Paul Heyman. Romanowski thinks he's 300 pounds. There's no way Paul Heyman is only 300 pounds. Could someone check and see what's his height? My guess is Paul Heyman is about 5'9", 5'10". I would say about 5'10". Because I'm 6'3.5". And when I met him, I haven't been around him recently, but I would say like here, maybe here, 5'9". Thank you, OTS Tribal Queen. Yeah, I figured about 5'9", 5'10". I think he's probably like 340. He's 330. Maybe he's 330. So, all right, some people are now saying he's 5'11". You know what? He might be 5'11" now because he might have a lot of fat underneath his feet. Believe me, when I was 365, one thing I noticed, no joke, and anybody that's very, very heavy out there, you don't have to say this publicly, but you probably know what I'm talking about. When you get very, very heavy, you do get like fat, like underneath your feet. I remember, because I still wear a size 13, 14, depending on the shoe company. But I remember when I was 365, I think I bought a size 15 once. And that was just because it was like fat, like around my feet. I look like Cabbage. You ever see like Cabbage Patch Kids? That's what my feet look like. They look like Cabbage Patch Kids, just with scars. So anyway, they pick him up, they put him to the table, and I look pretty vicious. And the referees flock to Paul Heyman almost immediately to check on him to see if he's okay. And Paul Heyman's selling it like $1 million. He does not move. He's just face down, does not move. And the crowd is just, and here's the worst part about it. The crowd is chanting, I think, fuck you, Solo. And they go off the air and we hear nothing. There's no sound at all because Fox has just got their, do I have a censor button? No, it's not handy. They literally have the silence button pushed. They're not like just doing hitting the fuck. They're just, we go off the air about 10 to 15 seconds of silence because the crowd is chanting expletives. Fox. We should have expected this before they signed the deal. I look in reflection, probably we should have all said, man, it's going to suck when they have really good shit on TV because they're going to censor out all the chants. We know that they always censor out chants, but it's a little bit more manageable if you just hit the beep. I mean, I'm not trying to always compare ECW, but I think it's definitely worthy to mention this now. When we used to watch ECW on the MSG network, Prime Network, even on TNN, there was a lot of cursing. Not a lot, but there was a decent amount of cursing. You know, whoever it was, Paul Heyman, Shane Douglas, Taz, well. You know, they would censor out all the expletives. I don't remember any of us complaining that we would hear a censor button on TV. They would beep it. You know, like Shane Douglas would say, fuck Ric Flair, and you would hear beep. It never bothered us. Like, of course, we would, in a perfect world, we don't want to hear censor buttons. I don't remember, honestly, watching ECW and ever saying, man, the fucking censors are killing these show. I don't recall ever having a problem with it. Why not just hit the censor button? You know, just beep it. Why just put it on mute? It almost feels like Fox is punishing WWE. as some people say on social media, zero fucks given. That's how it feels like to me. It feels like Fox is not renewing them. And they're like, you know what? Zero fucks given. We're just going to, we're going to just keep the censor down. We're not going to try to keep the cadence and miss one here and there. So we'll just push it and just keep it down. I hate that really. Now, yes, I'm sure online right now on Twitter, there's probably uncensored versions of it. Even the stuff from earlier in the night, we'll watch it, obviously. But, that's the biggest change that's going to be on Netflix. You're not going to see crazy. This is not going to be an AEW type episode where you can see crazy blood, crazy weapons being used, expletives every week. WWE's not going to change that much. The biggest change that'll probably be apparent is when the crowds chant, it will not be censored. I don't know. I got to look and see if they announced events for the beginning of January. But I think we should all start this. I think wherever Raw ends up for the first episode in 2025, we have to make sure that crowd just chants expletives for no fucking reason at all. Like, they should just start some chants just to like kind of celebrate that they could just curse their ass off and it will not be censored on TV. We definitely, I got to find out. They definitely have not announced matches yet, but that's going to be the biggest difference with Netflix. When shit goes down, it's not going to be censored like that. I think advertisers will be aware of that as well. Advertisers will be aware of it. There will be ads. We've discussed this before. So, all right. I want to give a super shout out to, who's this? Bernard. What's up, Bernard? Haven't been in a car wreck myself. Your words hit me hard. Thank you for you and Kev. To you and Kev. I'm 30. Been a fan since 16. I've helped you through depression. I really appreciate that, Bernard. I know people come to my shows, any podcast out there, to get away from bullshit, escape, have some fun, some laughs, not take wrestling too seriously. When Drew McIntyre gets screwed in Scotland, we don't have to wish death on Triple H. Drew McIntyre will be just fine. Yes, sometimes wrestling breaks our heart and gets us pissed off at times. But, sometimes I think it's just necessary to, bring up real stuff. Because at the end of the day, even though we come to these shows or for wrestling or any type of entertainment for an escape, sometimes there is a common reason why we're all together. Yesterday, when I was on Monty and the Pharaoh, I'm not going to lie. I wish we had another half an hour, because there was definitely a lot more I wanted to talk about. There was a few personal stories from Daphne, others that I wanted to share, but it wasn't, it didn't fit during the conversation. But one thing I really wanted to bring across yesterday was that a lot of the reasons why I started my hotline was depression also. I mean, wrestling was my only escape at the time. It sucked, being in a wheelchair for 9 months. It sucked realizing I can't pile drive my friends anymore on the fucking grass. It sucks that I couldn't play softball. So, watching wrestling and sitting around and doing nothing else, was playing video games too, was kind of my escape. And clicking with wrestling and having conversations with hosts and then starting your own hotline and seeing people flock to it and having conversations with others, it was a big deal for me also. It was very therapeutic for me. So I wanted to bring that point across yesterday too. And I was able to an extent, but we've all been there. I mean, I don't think I've ever been to the point, where, it gets really, really dark, but, I've had, my battles with it. It's you just, you try to do things that make you happy. Um, but I'm glad we can help in some way. Yeah, actually, you know what? At the very end of the show yesterday, Monty and Farrell brought up that it is so special to them when they hear people thank them that they helped them get through rough times. And any of you that go back with me, and since Bernard goes back 14 years, this is definitely something he remembers. We had times, there was a tornado in Florida, and there was a guy, and he sent us pictures because he thought that we thought he was lying, and he was not lying. He literally was on his cell phone, and he's like, I just wanted to call into your show. I don't remember what episode it was. One day I'll find it. But he called into the show, and he says, look, he says, I'm standing in front of what was my house. Everything is destroyed. I've lost everything. My family is eating like MRE meals. I don't know where we're going to go. I don't even know what we're going to do. But I'm listening to your show live because you're getting my mind off the fact that we just lost everything. And we were just like speechless on the show. One of the things that's very special for me, and this is something I really wanted to mention yesterday, but Mike was like, we're out of time. Lucky 13, which was 4 years ago or 5 years ago? About 4 or 5 years ago, WrestleMania weekend, we did a get together in Brooklyn at a place called Lucky 13. I was there, Joey Numbers, Kev had to work. He made good money that weekend, so he earned it. Mish was there. John Draper was there. Jason Solomonster showed up for a little while. And it's all on video. It's on YouTube. I mean, some other people have it streamed. I never tried to copyright it, even though they got some decent ad revenue off of it. But the one thing that I'll always remember from that night was at the end of the night, for some reason, people started forming lines. They formed 2 lines. And we had probably 100, 150 people there, I would say, maybe 100. But suddenly there were 2 lines being formed. One line was for, I think, Mission Joey Numbers. I don't know how the lines were set up. But anyway, what the line was people who were there for us, and they all formed a line to just walk up to me and say, thank you for everything you've done for me. I lost my mother, and you guys helped me through it. I lost this, you guys helped me through it. My father died from cancer, you guys helped me through it. And that's what the line was. It was just people just walking up to shake hands and thank. And even though I don't talk to Mish anymore, I know that night for everybody that was there was just mind-blowing, because it's like, I never thought that we would have that kind of effect on people. That's why I'll say this, and we'll start bringing this home. These shows obviously are not as big with views because these are hours long. If I broke it up into 10-minute clips, obviously, because people just want to ingest a couple of minutes, it obviously would get a bigger following. We keep the DTKC show to channel members because they help us revenue-wise, so we don't put it everywhere here. Also, but my point is this. There's definitely things that I could do to make the channel bigger. There's even emotional, manipulative ways, clickbait, this and that. But, the one thing that I think separates what Kevin and I do, even Monty and Farrell does, is, we treat everybody who tunes in, even though we may never talk to you, but we treat everybody with respect, and we treat all of you as if we're all friends. I even said that last night. That's why I started my hotline. I just wanted to talk wrestling as if we were just all hanging out at a bar, at a barbecue, just talking about wrestling. That's always been my style, and it always will be my style. There's a lot of other shows out there they're not talking to you. They're talking at you. They have a list of bullet points and topics and points they want to make. And whether you listen or you don't listen, they're going to say the very same thing. And those audiences are bigger, but that intimate relationship is not there. Yes, you'll have a get together and people will show up, but they're not showing up because everybody is chummy, buddy, and they have interactions if people want it. They're just there because they're a fan of somebody. It's like going to a fan fest and you meet somebody that you always liked, whether they're a movie star or a singer or a wrestler. You know, you're there because you're a fan of theirs, but there's no personal interaction before or afterwards. You might enjoy their movies, you might enjoy their podcasts, you might enjoy their matches, but they're performing and you're ingesting it. It's not direct, and that's something that I always try to be different. That's why we even settled on this show on Fridays. It's more interactive. I don't want to just come up here and read wrestling news and give opinions and get out of here. I'd rather it be a little bit more interactive based on what you guys want to talk about. So, believe me, whenever I see stuff like this, especially, and thank you again, Bernard, especially when it comes to, emotional issues and stuff like that, if it helps you, that's awesome. And it's helped me, and it certainly have helped Kev, so very cool, very cool. All right, let's answer a couple more questions. We'll get out of here in maybe 10 minutes. It's 12:47. You could probably see the time in the background. We'll go to 1 a.m. and then we'll get out of here. Monday, I'll be back with Kev live. Definitely, again, if you didn't check out my appearance on Monty and the Pharaoh, I think you'll enjoy it. I mean, if you want, I don't tell a lot of the same stories like I always do. This was different. Yesterday was different. And listen, I was called out about the Misha Montana interview. I softballed questions, and I admitted it. And I explained why I dodged a bunch of questions. I was asked why I didn't bring up Matt Riddle's suspension for cocaine. I was asked about a few other things. I was challenged about Cross. Should Cross be released? I answered everything honestly. People asked, about the falling out I had with Kev, and I was man enough to admit my mistake. It's a very interesting show, I promise you. Am I going to watch Forbidden Door? Romanowski, I am definitely going to watch most of it. I'm not watching it live because, believe it or not, I have doctor's appointment Monday morning, and I definitely want to get a good night's sleep the night before. I will definitely see what the feedback is. If there's any matches that are really passable, I'll probably skip a few matches, but there is quite a bit that I'm interested in seeing. I'm looking forward to Beyond Forbidden Door because, and I'm not saying this to be controversial, I'm an American guy. I like American wrestling. I don't mind Japanese wrestling, but I don't watch it on a regular basis. I don't want to be force-fed CMLL wrestlers. I don't want to be force-fed Japanese wrestlers. And it kind of feels like, we like it, you must like it. I want to get past that. I want to see MJF, which should have been the reason why he came back immediately. I want my title back. I want the Elite. How do you have the Elite cause this chaos? Oh, we'll get him back at Blood and Guts. No, if somebody's causing destruction, you don't let them do it for 2 months. And then, we'll beat you. We'll beat your asses. Yeah, in a month from now. MJF, Tony Khan should have said he brought back MJF to help take out the Elite. Things like that. Not rocket science to come up with. Mercedes Moné. They insist on her being more of like a babyface inspiration, role model, earth-changing, person for like the women's movement. She should have been this, I don't want to use the K word, the C-U-N-T word, but she should have been this absolute asshole, greedy bitch. She doesn't have to mention WWE, but she should have came in and said, I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that. I want my own locker room. I want bubble blend. I want green M&Ms. I want this, I want this, I want this. I am royalty. I am the best. I am the CEO. I am number one. I just don't do a lisp very good. If I could do a lisp, I'd probably sound like her a little bit better. I want that title. I want that title. I want this. I want that. Who are you? Ta-ta. Bye-bye. She should have been this prima donna bitch. And people could have said, that's the WWE. And they brought her in. Oh, I have unfinished business with Willow. Awful. Will Ospreay. I mean, come on. Awesome talent. Look at Okada. My God. Look what this motherfucker has done. His greatest match is against to me, an way too old CMLL wrestler. I mean, I'm hoping we get beyond Forbidden Door and they start giving us better. Okay. Solo sometimes feels like he's going to sing Save Your Tears and Blinding Lights. Solos feels like he's going to sing. I tell you, when I was watching him talk to Paul Heyman earlier, I kept thinking about when he used to be like this. Never said a word. I listened. I obviously followed him in NXT, saw a little bit of his work before he went to NXT. Guy could talk, but it's interesting to see how dramatically changed he is compared to a year ago. Maybe even 9 months ago, 6 months ago. MJF's return has not been wasted. It's just started. He came back in May. We're only in June. But I hate the fact that he is only in the first quarter. I hate when shows are being booked to deceive, manipulate ratings, if that makes sense. I mean, awesome example. Awesome example. I did take this screenshot to share with everybody. Awesome example. Kevin and I brought this up. Did we bring it up? No, I brought it up on Patreon Tuesday because we didn't have the Raw rating until Tuesday. Dave Meltzer on Monday night wrote this about Raw. And I have word for word in front of me. He wrote, Raw goes up against Stanley Cup Game 7 tonight. Stanley Cup will hurt it. But the follow-up of Wyatt 6, McIntyre stuff, and Money in the Bank qualifying should be a positive. But if it's a down or stable, very legit reason. In Canada, nobody expects a good Raw number. Game is way bigger there. So he's basically telling everyone, expect a shit rating because they're going up against Game 7 of the Stanley Cup NHL Finals. Well, Raw's rating on Monday was over 1.8 million viewers. It was the highest Raw since the night after WrestleMania. NXT a couple of weeks ago, going up against the NBA Finals, did like 780. SmackDown 2 weeks ago had its highest number in 3 months, going up against playoffs as well. What does that tell you? You put on a good fucking product, your wrestling fans will choose wrestling over other stuff. I've been saying the same shit since 1997. I don't remember Survivor when they got shit numbers. I don't remember Survivor or a baseball game or a movie or a TV series ever say, man, fucking Raw was on last night. Our number was down, but that's because Raw did a high rating. Nobody ever makes excuses for their numbers. At the end of the day, whether a rating is good or a rating is bad, that is because your wrestling fans decided they chose you over something else on a Monday night or a Wednesday night or a Friday, Tuesday night, or the opposite. They chose to watch something else or do something else than your show live. period. I hate when people say, well, but game 7, right, that. Because you want to try to come off as this expert and now analyst. See, I told you. They got a bad number, game 7. They didn't learn with NXT, they didn't learn with SmackDown. And the best part about it is when AEW did 502, remember last Friday? We put side by side the Wednesday ratings compared to the Wednesday before, and 95% of the shows were either the same or higher than the week before. You go elsewhere, people, it sounds like it makes sense until you actually dissect it and you realize, oh shit, we fucked up. Just like even with Tony Khan with the Fox stuff. Tony Khan went on Cage Match, saw the number at January of 2024 and thought, oh, up to now, we've done 113 events or 119 events. So we'll have Fox put down that we've had over 110 events so far in 2024. Did not notice that the first show was December 2024. He just looked at the number next January 1st and said, oh, we've done 119 shows to date. Then you take that and you multiply it by the average viewership that WrestleTix put out, and there's your 500,000. Simple as that. All right. What time is it? 12:52. We still got 7 minutes. For those asking, I did not watch a majority of Who Killed WCW. I personally feel what Kevin and I predicted it would be was exactly what it was. It was a waste of time. Some people are calling it the Eric Bischoff redemption. This was Vice making an agreement with The Rock and, whatever the fuck that other guy's name is, Brian Gerwitz. Let's make a controversial. I remember when they announced it like 6 months ago, I'm like, why is The Rock rehashing this? Like, what else is going to come out? It's not hard. You had bad storylines. WWE was on fire. You had a lot of creative problems, overbloated salaries. AOL Time Warner took it over. AOL lost a lot of money. With the Time Warner merger, they had a disaster. Anybody looks at the AOL disaster at that time, and they were trying to cut their losses. And WCW happened to be hemorrhaging money at the time, and they said, let's cut our losses before it gets any worse. Period. 5 minutes. Easy to explain. But you got all these hacks that are on there that no one has talked to in years. What do you think happens? Vice calls them up. Hey, you want to do an interview about WCW? Yeah, just talk about this. We'll give you $500. Yeah, I'll do it. Fuck yeah. It was a waste of time. It made some people feel relevant again. It made people make dumb excuses. It lets wrestlers who do not, do much anymore, they get a chance to talk again. It was just an absolute waste of time. People wrote books about it. People did videos about it. People do this. It's not hard. Look at the newspapers from the AOL Time Warner. Look what happened to AOL Time Warner at that time. And then you see the news reports that they're streamlining. They didn't just get rid of WCW. Did they even say on that show that there were multiple, projects that they got rid of, investments? It wasn't just WCW. There was a lot that they cut. WCW was one of them. But no, they didn't want to portray that. They just figure, we'll get 120,000 suckers that'll find it interesting and people tune in. It was bullshit. Martin says, even the worst AEW is better than the best WWE show, but mainstream brainwashed minds are a lost cause. See all of you live on Long Island at Forbidden Door Sunday. It will be a blast. I hope you have a good time, man. I hope you have a blast. Look, I brought this up yesterday on Monty and the Pharaoh. You know, if I was invited to go to Forbidden Door, and I'm not even saying free tickets, if I was invited by people from my neck of the woods, that people were having a get together and stuff, I would have went. But, you know, unfortunately, a lot of people like to talk out of their ass. And this started a couple of years ago. I had a few people, when AEW comes to Forest Hills, we got to all get together. We got to catch up. Yeah, let me know. Let me know what you're doing. And then they come into Forest Hills and I see them all on social media. Hey, we're all getting together. We're going to meet up over here. We're going to go over here. We're going to hang out here. We're going to go over here afterwards. And I'm waiting for an email or a DM that says, hey, DT, are you coming down? Not one. That's okay. Didn't bother me. I mean, I got a hot piece of ass inside waiting for me. I'm just joking, but no, there was a lot of people like, oh, we got to get together. We got to do this. I'm like, yeah, I'm down. And then I see them all, you know, there's a clique. And if you're not part of that clique, so, you know, it's, that I would have went. There's a bunch of people that are supposedly good friends of mine. They're all getting together. I got no DMs or no emails. Hey, you want to come down? You want to get together? So I'm not going to just show up. So Ben is laughing. Nobody likes me, Ben. Nah, it's all good. It's just, you know, I think some people just try to be nice, but whatever. Tristan is asking, what were my thoughts on the Goldberg Undertaker match? I just feel that, you know, Undertaker, you know, it just, there's a lot of Undertaker's later final matches. I think it's the best way to put it. There's a lot of the Undertaker's final matches that I wish it never happened. Look, his legacy is fine. He is one of the greatest of all time. You know, it's just that sometimes you think you could do it still, but your body tells you otherwise. Goldberg, you know, look, Goldberg, even towards his final matches with WWE, Goldberg actually had a lot of issues also. If I remember correctly, didn't Goldberg like nail someone with like a spear and a jackhammer once, like at the very end? I don't remember who it was against. I don't know if it was Kevin Owens or Austin there. I don't remember who it was, but it was like, okay, you know, all right, you did that, fine, that's enough. Goldberg now wants one more match. If he gets one more match, it's to just squash the fuck out of somebody. Even if it's, I think of Austin Theory or Grayson Waller or somebody like that. Undertaker is just, it was just sad. It was just sad. You know, his match against AJ Styles, yes, it was COVID. Yes, it was edited and produced. And if any wrestler needs that much editing, you have no business wrestling anymore. But the finished product, that's the way you go out. I'm so glad it ended on that note. Goldberg physically still looked the part. I think just, unfortunately, you just get to a certain age and you just can't do it anymore. So, who's the face of this era, Cody or Roman? This era is still very much yet to be identified. The Netflix era is going to dramatically change the perception of WWE. Even though the presentation will not be much different, it's the feel of it that will be different. You know, Roman Reigns' reign was a couple of years. This is, an era is not based on a couple of years. We have to give more time. We only got out of COVID, 2 years ago? You know, COVID started in, if we could say, early 2020. You know, I know it's a little before, but say early 2020 is when COVID started. We're only in 2024. You know, we're not that far removed from COVID. COVID really fucked up this era. So we still got many years to go before we could really choose what this era is. All right, it's 1 a.m. I'm out of here. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, guys and gals. Monday night I'll be live with Kev at 11:15 p.m. We'll see what they do next with the Wyatt 6 storyline. I truthfully believe they need to start. I know this sounds nuts. They need to start doing character development for the members. The Bo Dallas, some people agree with me, some people disagree with me. That Bo Dallas Uncle Hattie video should have aired on TV a month minimum before they debuted, 2 months before they debuted. We should have learned why Bo Dallas became a monster before he became a monster. They're showing the videotape now, but the storyline should have been that, so we anticipate. You build characters before they become that character. Now they're like going backwards. So look, it's only been 2 weeks, but still the Chad Gable stuff really didn't lead anywhere. That guy that looked like he had his head blown off, we don't know anything that ever happened from there. There was really no progression tonight, so let's see what they do on Tuesday. On Monday. It's going to be really interesting a month from now, 2 months from now, where this is at. I'll say this in closing. I know a lot of you don't like Vince Russo. I mentioned this once before, but he made a point that I agree 100%. Whether you like it or you don't like it, Vince McMahon was heavily involved in the Wyatt storyline, the Fiend storyline. Bray Wyatt obviously was the person, the catalyst, the person behind everything, that creative mind. Yes, there is more freedom now. Yes, there is more leeway now. Yes, there is more time. Yes, there is more of an opportunity to develop now. But Vince and Bray Wyatt are no longer around. So we have instead a Marvel writer, Triple H, the regular WWE writers, Bo Dallas. He could love his brother to infinity and beyond. You could look like him, you could smell like him, you could dress like him, you could act like him, you could talk like him, you could try to live your life. You're still not him. And creatively, I'm curious to see where this goes. But I am reminded what he said. At the end of the day, the two biggest people that were involved in this are not around. So let's see where it goes. I keep an open mind, and I'm definitely anxious to see where it goes, and I hope it works, and I hope it works great. I'm not going to always put it to the level of Bray Wyatt and the Wyatt family. It is definitely unfair to look at them equally and compare this to this. That it's totally unfair. But 1 week in, you see what happened and what didn't happen on Monday. So that kind of concerns me a little bit. So, all right, everybody, I'm out of here. Much love. I'll catch you all again Monday after Raw with Kev. And check out Monty and the Pharaoh, my appearance there. You'll enjoy it.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster. For me to live any other way was nuts. To me, those goody-good people who worked shitty jobs for bum paychecks and took the subway to work every day and worried about their bills were dead. I mean, they were suckers. They had no balls. If I wanted something, I just took it. I ran everything. I paid the bills. I paid the host. I even paid the masked maniac. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. We always called each other good fellas. You would always hear from somebody. You're gonna like Don Tony. He's alright, he's a good fella. He's one of us. But if you're part of my crew, nobody ever tells you they're gonna get rid of you. It doesn't happen that way. There weren't any arguments or curses like in the movies. See, your haters come with smiles. They come as your friends, the people who've claimed they care the most for your life. And now that's all over. And that's the best part. Today everything is different. There's lots of action. I don't have to wait around for everything like everyone else. Oh, I didn't get the vaccine? Fuck you, vaccine me. Oh, your delivery guy has COVID? Fuck you, feed me. Right after I moved here, I ordered egg noodles and ketchup, and I got spaghetti with meat sauce. I'm no longer an average nobody, while they get to live the rest of their lives like a bunch of schnooks.